said.
Okay. Thanks for your patience.
Why is there a black box on it?
Ladies and gentlemen, we're back for episode 7 of Awesome People Talk to Andrew. It's amazing. We've gone 7 episodes and just published as of this morning, actually, the man with 32 billion streams, according to his Instagram account, Andrew Scheps.
And as I said on the post, what the fuck does that even mean?
Right?
It makes no sense to me. And the weird part is, like, this thing that it does analytics, and there were like billions, 19 billion TikTok watches or whatever you call it. And
oh, that's amazing.
So it's got to be just like songs I've worked on that people are, I don't know.
Yeah,
it's weird. But what is quite cool is, and maybe this is from the same source, I don't know, my manager sent it to me, that there are 2 songs, I think actually 3, that I've mixed that are in the billion stream club.
That's amazing.
Way Down We Go by Kaleo, and then Snow by the Chili Peppers, and I believe Danny California's over 1 billion now too. So
That's
that's
amazing.
insane.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. Do you ever...
good on them.
You probably don't, knowing your humility, but do you ever think about that? Like 1 billion streams of something that you've mixed?
No, because it's incomprehensible. It doesn't mean anything. But there, I mean, I think I told the story about Danny California. Did I tell the story about I was driving around? Did I say anything about that? I was driving in LA, and it was warm, as it is in LA, and I had my windows open. And I pulled up to a traffic light, and there was this woman in a convertible next to me with Danny California cranked and singing along. And it's like, okay, that's the point. Like,
Yeah.
that's it. So that was awesome. That was really great to see somebody just so excited about something I'd worked on.
Right. Hold on. The chat room's telling me that I've got some delay happening, some slapback, if you will.
Is that you or me?
It's probably me because I was on speakers. Let's see if it gets better.
I'm turning you down a little bit because I don't really want to hear you anyway. But is that better?
Everybody's good. It was me. I had to put the ears back in.
Okay.
Awesome.
Don't
It's my
let us
first
know.
day, everybody. Yeah. It's not that we've done 7 of these or 40
I
some
told
of them
the cab
before that.
story for the first day cab story.
No.
I was not in this cab, but a friend of mine was saying that he was in New York and he needed to get a cab downtown. And so he hails a cab, gets in the cab, and the guy's like all over the place, just fucking nuts driving. And there's, at first they think it's like, you know, just aggressive cab driving and kind of weird. And so they start talking to him and he says, oh yeah, well, it's my first day, you know, doing this. And he'd come from somewhere, I don't remember where, but he'd gotten in, he got a medallion, first day driving the cab. And like, oh, right, first day driving the cab, that's amazing. I mean, this must be a hard place to do that. He's like, no, first day driving.
Oh my gosh. You haven't told this story.
They had him pull over and they got out. That's
Yeah.
the story. Yeah.
That's great. Awesome. All right. Well, so here we are, episode 7. And
Episode 7.
fully prepared. I came to this with a list. I studied a lot going into this.
You've made me choke with hilarity.
We went through and the remainder of Andrew's discography right before the show, and we have a list that we're going to go through. If we don't get to something that you were hoping to hear of that we haven't covered on a previous episode, let us know, and we'll try to hit it at the end here.
Yeah, so we're hoping like 2 hours of chat and then some Q&A and out, because Mark actually has a session because he's a star. So
it's kazoo ensemble, though.
Yeah, and you're in it.
I am in it. I have an electric.
You got a
kazoo.
concert. You got a concert.
I have
at
a concert.
The local elementary
I got a gig.
School.
Yes. Exactly. All right.
Yeah.
So to kick things
Okay.
off, the first
And
up on
also
our
in the
list.
chat, if we start talking about something we've already talked about, please just let us know. Neither of us can remember a thing about the other 6 episodes. I know one of them was all low roar. That's all I remember.
Yeah. Awesome. All right. Here we go. I like this comment. If I can work my thing. Boom. 2 to 4 hours. Let's do it.
Yeah.
All right. Let's kick off. So we are starting today with the wedding present.
The wedding present.
The wedding present.
Wedding present. So, someone I had met, and I'm trying to remember exactly where I met him. I can't. I won't remember. But he had started doing live sound for the Wedding Present, which is a band that's been around for a really long time, since the '80s, I believe. Yeah, mid to late '80s. I'm pretty sure. Anyway, from originally from different places, but based in Brighton, and the main singer songwriter is David Gedge. And the personnel of the band changes because it's just a project and he just keeps going and keeps going. And so people sort of come and go from the band, but he's been making records consistently the entire time. And this guy recommended me to them. And so I drove down to Brighton and went to a rehearsal that they were having. And it was cool. I mean, I love band rehearsals, pre-production band rehearsals. It's just the
Mm.
best. You hear something, you make a suggestion, and they may or may not like it or whatever. So I just thought, well, the only way to know if we're going to be able to work together is for me to react to the music and say stuff, and I did. And basically went like adopted all the stuff that I said. And at first I thought like, whoa, that's amazing, but that's like crazy. What do I know? This guy's been making wedding present records forever. But it's a little bit of how he makes the records. Like the music is super important to him. The project is super important, but at the same time, everything is just a moment in time because he knows he's going to make another record after it. So it's not like any record isn't important, but he's not laboring over the records.
Mm.
So we tracked the whole thing very quickly. I don't remember how many days, but it wasn't very many. And I may even be getting this confused. Someone else may have tracked that one, then I mixed it, and then I ended up tracking, I think, 2 records and mixing 3 for them or something like that. And we mixed the entire record in, was it 3 days or something like that? And this is
Wow.
when I was still on the Neve. So it was like show up, put up a song, and mix it. And they were just hanging out in the back of the room. And then after about an hour and a half, be like, hey, all right, so I think we got something. And you'd come up and have a listen, like, oh, why don't we turn that up? Okay, that's cool. And it was good. I mean, it turned out really well. And I think there was something about moving so fast and just reacting to
Yeah.
stuff. And there's a song on the first record I mixed for them. There's a song called Deer in the Headlights, which is just epic. It goes into this guitar jam at the end, not like Fish jam, but a good
Yeah.
big guitar thing. And it's really, really cool. And I remember there was one song, which we saved till last, that had 2 drummers on it. Because the guitar player in the band used to play drums in the band. And so there was one song where he played drums and the current drummer played drums. And they were playing different parts. Like both of them worked. And so we decided we were going to hard pan the drums. But because I was on the console, like I couldn't do that quickly. It's like,
Mm.
okay, mix the rest of the record. And now on this one, I'm going to have to repatch a bunch of shit and set some things up. And it's really cool. I don't remember which song it is. It'll be obvious if you listen to the record. And the reason it's really cool is there are also 2 guitar parts, and those are hard panned. And then the bass is up the middle, and the vocals up the middle. So if you listen to either channel, you get a different version of the same song. Different
Mm.
drum pattern, different guitar part, same bass, same vocal.
Whoa. Cool.
And it
And it
that
all
was the
interacts.
concept I had in my head, and it actually really worked out well. It was great.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah,
So
so
deer
they
in
worked really
headlights. Yeah.
fast. And then I mixed another record for him after we'd moved over here, but it was before I had a place to work that was in the house. So I was still in that caravan in a field. Have we talked? I think we talked about the
Yeah.
move, right? Okay.
Yeah.
And so obviously no one was coming over because it was like it was Debbie's mom's house and it's a caravan. there was electricity, but there's no heat, there's no running water, like whatever. It's a caravan in a field. And
Yeah.
he's like, well, I think it'd be quicker if I came up. So they came up and they stayed with us overnight. And we hung out in the caravan for like an hour and a half and did all the final changes and
Wow.
printed the record and moved on. So it was really great to have someone that creative and that like committed to what they're doing, but also willing to just move so fast, but not be compromising, just not overthinking. It's like, here's what we're doing. Yep, we did it. Move on.
Yeah. That's awesome.
Really cool.
Yeah. That's great. Like all in the moment. I just put a link for that song in the chat for everybody so they can go check it out. I want to hear that later.
Cool.
Yeah. Very cool.
Now we're
Nice.
motoring through. We're motoring through here.
That is
What
motoring
else?
through. Okay. First aid kit.
First aid kit.
Yeah.
So, interestingly, or not interestingly, but I'm going to say it anyway because who cares? It's my interview. I met Tucker Martine at the same, not tape op conference. I can't remember what was it called after that. Anyway, at the same one of those as I met Matt Rossbang. And at one point we were in a car going somewhere to eat. And I was just talking to Tucker on the way back or something like that. And we hit it off and, we got along really well. And then years and years went by and there was nothing we'd ever worked on together because Tucker, he produces, records and mixes most of the stuff he does.
Mm-hmm.
And he'd been producing the First Aid Kit record. And somehow it worked out that they were interested in me doing a mix. And so I did a mix and ended up mixing the record, which is very cool. It's called Ruins. It's a great record. It's really interesting. It's well recorded. I think the arrangements are great. There are a lot of tracks that have just feedback tracks and it's sort of tuned feedback and the vibe on
nice.
it is really incredible. And the girls are amazing singers, just awesome. Absolutely amazing singers. So that was really fun to mix. And I think at first Tucker, he wanted to mix the record because he was sort of expecting to, I think.
Yeah.
But he was so cool about it while we were working on it. And there were differences in mix notes on a couple of songs and, the band wins because the band wins and everyone was cool with that. But it was great to finally work with Tucker because I hadn't ever been able to.
Right.
So, and there's more about that record if you watch the interview I did with him. He was one of the earlier ones, I think.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was a really good one. He was super nice. And
then I managed to see them live a couple of times too, and it was sort of mind-blowing. The way they stand at the front of the stage, they don't look at each other, but the phrasing is different every single time they perform a song, and they are completely the same that day as each other.
Wow.
Just like mind meld between them.
Yeah. That's awesome. So they change the phrasing at every show kind of thing?
Yeah, I mean, not on purpose, but just like little stuff. It's not like we've worked out exactly how we will say. I mean, obviously, there are melodies and there are words, but it's just how long do you hold something at the end of the song and all that. And they just intuitively do it.
Follow each other. That's cool. Very neat.
Yeah. Do you want a geeky engineering thing about that?
What?
Album?
Yes. Yeah.
Everybody likes geeky engineering things, right?
Yeah.
So we've mentioned they sing together. So most of the songs, in the verses, it may just be one of them, but all choruses and some of the verses, it's both of them. And quite often they'll sing in thirds for a couple of notes or whatever. And thirds are notoriously never in tune. There's no way that the harmonics are ever in tune. So there's always some beating. And there was some like distortion in some of the mixes when they were exposed and singing in thirds that I just could not find. Like, where the hell is this blowing up? And it turned out that the release time on the limiter was fluttering and making distortion. But it took me like a few hours of investigating, trying to find that. And it was the first time it had ever been a problem. I was always on a really fast release on the limiter because I just don't want to be limiting very much.
Right. Yeah.
As soon as I slowed that down, perfect.
It cleaned up. Yeah.
Yeah.
And it was due to the thirds?
Yeah, it was the thirds
beating.
beating, and the release time was fast enough that it would flutter on the beats, and that was just making distortion.
That's wild. Yeah.
Yeah, fucked
Yeah,
up.
because if you muted the thirds, everything was fine.
If I muted either one of their vocals, it was absolutely fine.
Wow. Oh, that's interesting. Keep that in mind.
Yeah.
I've definitely experienced the fluttering from too fast of a release, but it's interesting that the harmonic content was doing that. Like to
Yeah, it
trigger it.
was the
Yeah.
beating between the notes that made it happen.
Wow.
And the last song on that record, I won't remember the name of it, but it's epic. It's another epic one. I mean, the whole album
Mhm.
is great, but
Yeah.
so you got to get
Well,
a link to that one
okay,
too.
so question, yeah, I'll do that. Question for you about working with other producers, especially ones who traditionally mix the artist stuff. When you're sending out the mixes, do you interface with the producer first, or do you send it to the artist, or is that a case by case?
It's case by case, and it's actually something I need to know very specifically because I've been in situations on records where the someone at the label says, "Hey, send it to me first." And like, "Oh, okay, so you do that." And then there was a record where I was doing that, but the band didn't know. And he was like, "No, just send it to me first before you send it to the band," because he had some definite ideas about some things. And I'm fine with
Hmm.
that, but then he got sick or something like that, and he couldn't listen for a week, and it was just some like basic mix changes, and the band kept saying like, "Hey, when are we going to get another mix? Like we're about to go on tour or something like that." And like,
Yeah.
oh, and so I had to keep making excuses as to why I wasn't sending a mix, and it made me just feel like such an asshole. So
Yeah.
now it's very, very specific. I have to know the distribution list for the mixes, in what order, and I need to know that everybody on that list understands what's going on if somebody's getting it first. Like I'm
Nice.
not covering for you. And if they don't tell them, but someone then asks, where's the mix? I'm going to say, oh, well, that person said to send it to them first. And because I'm not going under the bus because of that,
Yeah.
something like that.
Right. Yeah. It just
So
seems like it can get sticky. So it's,
yeah, so that
yeah.
is like I need to have the sessions the way you left off in the rough mix. You have to have rough mixes. I need to know when I get the files. I need to know when you need it finished by, and I need the distribution list. That's like a really basic requirement.
Yeah, that's awesome. Is that all in like a document that you send out when you start a project or?
Yeah, I mean now Frank takes care of it. So, but I think
Mhm.
so. I think it's like a copy and paste
Yeah.
sort of thing. I mean, I wrote it up, but 12 or 15 years ago or something ridiculous.
Yeah.
And then it's just still nothing's changed. That's all you ever need to know about a mixing gig.
Yeah. That's cool. Nice. I wish I was writing that down right now.
You
I'll
can
go
watch the
back.
video back,
I
though
can
you'll
watch
never
it
watch
back later.
a second of this.
I will. I've gone back on these. I just, especially for this one, because I was preparing to see where we left off on six.
Right.
So
Yeah, I
I
remember.
watched six to get ready for
You
today.
watched like 30 seconds of it
Yeah.
about 10 minutes ago.
While we were on together.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. So we are moving through and going on to, I'm excited about this, the Rival Sons.
Rival Sons. So
Yeah.
I don't need to explain about who they are, right? I mean, they're awesome. They've
Yeah.
been around for a while. And Dave Cobb has made every single one of their records. Like I don't know if he discovered them or if they just met really early on or what it is, but I think people know Dave Cobb for more of the country thing, little country rock or classic country,
Hmm.
but not like I mean, Rival Sons get pretty fucking heavy,
Yeah.
and he's not necessarily known for that, but it's a passion project. He loves working with him, as far as I can tell. And there was a record, and normally he's mixed all their stuff. Another one who'd mixed all of it, and I don't know why it came up for me to mix some, but he was totally on board with it, and he mixed I think half the record. But there were songs he just felt like he wanted someone else to mix them, and I got the tracks, and they're awesome. Everything recorded live in a room,
Mm.
and there's there's an engineering story I tell to people who are starting out mixing, because there was a song that when they were tracking, the bass amp was obviously in a booth like near the live room where the drums were. And so the room mics had tons of like low end through a wall bass on them.
Mm-hmm.
And I've seen a lot of people say about, hey, you should go through your tracks and high pass and get rid of messy low end. And yeah, in theory,
Mm-hmm.
that makes perfect sense. But when I was doing the mix, I didn't do that. I was just throwing up tracks, got a balance, really started getting into it. And then at one point, I thought, well, the low end's a little loose. Like maybe I should have a look at that. But
Mm-hmm.
I already really liked what the mix was sounding like. And I immediately started going through the drum tracks. I thought, well, the toms probably, maybe the overheads or rooms. I get to the rooms, there's all this bass bleed. Like, oh, cool, easy. High pass them a little bit, and the tune just felt so unbelievably boring.
Wow.
Like,
Yeah.
well, not boring, but the drums were still this roomy thing that was awesome. But the bass was all of a sudden like just dry and in the middle and
Focused
like
and
that, and it
yeah.
didn't match. And I put the low end back in, and it was just like, that's fucking awesome. And if I had gone through as part of a cleanup process and high passed, I never would have even known that that could have worked.
Right.
So
Yeah.
yeah, don't have a checklist, is, that's what I always say about it. But that album definitely reinforced that it's a really good idea not to do stuff for no particular reason.
Right. Right. Just because you see it on Pro Q3 or something like that, like,
Yeah,
going crazy in the low end doesn't mean it
yeah,
needs to be cut kind of
exactly.
thing. Yeah.
And so then the next record that just came out last year, they did it as two. I think it ended up being two 9-song records. They split it up because they had more songs than they needed for a record and didn't want to not put them out. And Mark Rankin mixed half of it, and I mixed half. And Mark is amazing. He did the last Queens of the Stone Age record, which sounds fucking ridiculous. It's so
Nice.
cool. But we have really different styles of mixing. So it's really interesting, but it works.
Yeah.
People worry about how consistent things will be, but it's the same band,
Yeah.
you know. So it absolutely works. So that was great. I mean, obviously it didn't work with him because he was mixing some, I was mixing others, but it was really cool to, share a record with
Yeah.
him.
That's awesome. Very nice. Also, little Puremix plug. Hold on. Puremix plug time.
I
Andrew
love that
has a
you have the
video.
actual bicycle horn down there.
Yeah. Yeah, it's perfect. I'm hiding it. You can't see it. It's in my hands that are off camera.
I should have
uh,
my train whistle.
yeah. Yes, you should. Andrew mixed the Rival Sons "Do Your Worst" in a Puremix tutorial, so you guys
And
can check
that
that out.
is the song with the low end.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and I'm pretty sure that there's a chapter on it. Like you go through and you demonstrate like how it is, versus with the high pass and
Good.
without and all
Yeah, I
that.
didn't
So
even
yeah,
remember demoing it.
yeah,
But yeah, it's not subtle either.
yeah, awesome. So definitely check that one out. That's a great song too. Good stuff. Okay.
We're motoring through. It won't even be 2 hours at this rate.
Okay. Well, we might have some things that take more time. Who knows what's going to happen?
Yeah.
Like, who knows what's going to happen with Andrew Bird?
Andrew Bird. So this came out of I think I'm getting this right. The woman who manages My Brightest Diamond, who we talked about quite a bit, also manages Andrew Bird. I
Mm.
think I've got that right. So he was making a record, and everything's cut live in a room. Like there are microphones that are closer to some of the instruments, but everything bleeds into everything, which is exactly how he wants to do it. It's live takes, very few, if any, overdubs. Like it's all about just the moment. And there were two songs that, for whatever reason, they weren't loving the mixes they were doing, and so she said, well, why don't we get Andrew to do them? And it was fun. It's really interesting to mix stuff that's tracked that way, because you can break it really, really easily, and you
Mm.
have to embrace the bleed. Like the drum sound, as Matt Rossbang will, it's like the drum sound is whatever sounds good in the back of the vocal mic kind of thing.
Mm.
When he was tracking it, Son, it's like that. The sound of everything is reliant upon all the other mics. So it's all about panning and balance, not tweaking so much.
Yeah.
Because if you do that, you're going to ruin something. So yeah, I guess it was just finding a bit more oomph and making it bigger. So it was only the two songs, not a whole lot of interaction because it's mixing now. It's like I don't talk to people, and we talked about it
Yeah.
with Adele. Like I'd never spoken to her until after the Grammy thing
Yeah.
backstage. So uh, that
That's
happens
wild.
more than you think.
Right.
Yeah, but it was great. It was really fun to mix because again, it's just not something I get to mix like a whole lot.
Yeah. Yeah. Um, so any other challenges with the all in the, all in the same room? Did you deal with a lot of phase issues or did you have to do anything with sliding things around or?
No, and I didn't even look to. Like I
Yeah.
know that they were listening to those tracks that way and they were happy. And when they said that they weren't, well, whatever it was that made them decide to have somebody else mix a couple of songs, obviously something's not right. But I pulled up tracks and nothing like that would sound phasey. You'd hear it comb filtering on an
Mm-hmm.
instrument. It was a problem. And it was more just like instruments that would come and go. You had to make sure that you were ready for the right level all the way through, even though the bleed of the other instruments into that microphone where nothing was happening was making it sound more roomy. Whereas once that instrument happened, it would sort of overtake the room in that microphone, if it makes any sense. So it would
Mm-hmm.
kind of help things dry up. But you couldn't make stuff come and go because it
Yeah.
would just be a scene change and it would be distracting. So that was kind of the interesting part was how much can I bring this down? And the other thing is no quick rides. Everything moves very, very slowly.
Wow.
So if you're going to bring something in that hasn't really been in that much, you bring it in over like 4 bars so that
Wow.
nobody notices. So it even starts off a little bit quiet and then gets up there. Like it's and you hear it, it's not like, oh, this is a technique and make sure you do it. Like it won't work if you just mute stuff.
Yeah.
Like that just sounds bad.
Right. Yeah. Have you done any tracking? Well, I mean, you probably mixed a lot of records that were like this, but have you done stuff where you specifically went for something like that?
um yeah, I mean, I've tracked a few things like that. I did some demos with a band. Actually, it was Shooter Jennings band, and Tom Morello was producing it. And this is one of those things where we had a day and we went
Mm.
into a studio and did a couple of songs, and it was very much that. I started off with things isolated because that's, whatever, it's the way I had been doing things. And they were having trouble like just having a groove, and so we took all the amps out of the room. And I had Jeff Powell at that point had been
Mm.
telling me about the way he would do that. If the amps are going to be in the room, you kind of line the front of the amps up with the front of the drum kit,
Yeah.
like the front of the kick. And for whatever reason, it just makes the bleed a little more something. I don't know. So we did that and cut the song that way. I cut bands together all the time. I hate just doing like, oh, we'll just do bass and drums, or worse, we'll just do drums. Like you have no idea what you've got. You need everybody out there to be like reacting to it, even if you're going to replace it all.
Yeah.
And you usually don't replace everything because some of it, like that works, and
Yeah.
sometimes you do replace it, but it's okay. That's how you know the drum take is great because the singer gets really excited.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, so like Duke Spirit, everything was isolated, but everything cut at the same time. And then I
Yeah.
think we replaced almost all the guitars and some of the bass, and certainly re-sang the vocals. So on a lot of the songs, drums were the only thing we kept. But that energy of letting the band play is super important to me when you're tracking.
Yeah. Awesome. Yeah. I love stuff like that. Very cool. Somebody in the chat says, Jeff Powell, shout out.
Of
Nice.
course,
Yeah. We just saw him when we were in Memphis. He's awesome.
he is
Cool
awesome.
guy. Look him up if you don't know him, guys. Very cool. Okay. So we have a question about Rival Sons that I'm just going to hit right now. Here we go. Did you mix both the Atmos and stereo on Darfighter?
Yes,
If
we Mark and I did the Atmos mixes of the songs that we mixed in stereo.
Yeah.
So
Nice.
the all the saturation and things like that comes from the stereo mix. That was stereo mixes approved, I think even mastered, and then okay, we do need the Atmos, go ahead and do it. So I would go back and print, 30 or 40 stems per song, basically everything separate, but through the mix bus with whatever processing there was in the stereo mix, because that's the way I like to mix Atmos at the moment, because that stereo mix is done and approved. The last thing I want to do is have people second guessing like the guitar tones. Like
Right.
we've already done that, so I don't
Yeah.
want to do it again. But I think what happens on the Atmos version is because I'm peeling some stuff off of the front wall, you get to hear what's going on in the drum kit. And I make the drums pretty dirty to keep up with the guitars, but now all of a sudden you can really hear it. But none of that is added for the Atmos mix. And what's the limit on dirt when it sounds too dirty? I mean, it's a ridiculous thing to say, and it's not helpful. But that's it. Like, you don't ever make something dirty because like you're allowed to. You make it dirty because that's what makes it work. And I get a lot more out of saturation and distortion than on drums, for instance, than I do out of compression or even room mics sometimes. Like, I'll have better luck putting some dirt on close mics than room mics, because the room mics just may not sound great. So to use those as part of the drum sound is not necessarily going to help you out. But parallel distortion or just straight up saturating the kit. God, this cat is soaked. Squid just came in, so I'm gonna.
Was outside.
Huh?
Squid was outside.
Yeah,
Rain?
yeah, and it's
Yeah.
been raining all day, as it does here. So, yeah.
Nice. Just to expand on that thing about what's the limit when it sounds too dirty. That's speaking like firsthand, as like, somebody studying along as you've been teaching, over the last however many years. It is funny how that goes from being a thing that when you hear somebody say that, like also, your comments on when is the mix done, when you have nothing left to change, or the only thing that matters is what's coming out of the speakers. Those comments to somebody who's coming up, it's almost frustrating, because you're like, I want more than that. I want a better description of that. Yeah. I want to know what to do. But then there's a point, at least for me, where it kind of like clicked and it made sense. It's like, of course that is the answer. That is the answer.
And the problem is, if I say something specific to do, that's only something that works for me.
Yeah.
And it'll be like the checklist. Like, if I say you should high pass stuff because, it's easy to muddy up the low end, well, you'd make the mistake I almost made on the Rival Sons track, and you'll fuck something up. So there's no, like, you should always do this. There's no such thing, except you should always make sure that the vocal's good, because it's the most important thing. And I mean good, like it's the right level for the track and you can hear it if you're supposed to, and all that. Like, you make the important things important. But again, it's all just conceptual. It's not how you would go about doing it.
Yeah. Yeah. Which makes it hard to teach, but it was definitely, I mean, for me, there really was a point where I was like, I get what he's saying. Like, especially about, when's the mix done, when there's nothing left you would change. There's definitely a point, but it's
and
like
I
after
think
the hours are put in.
There's some people who are really good at teaching mixing, like John Paterno, who you've done quite a bit of work with. He has pedagogy to teach some of the nuts and bolts.
Yeah.
And it turns out, I'm sure if you go back, all he ever did was teach you how to listen, but he did it with very specific things and gave you like almost exercises to do to learn how to hear the thing and then solve it with the particular tools he was talking about. And there are a few people who are really good at that. So if you want specific stuff like that, I think you've got to search out someone like John who really teaches that. Whereas the only way I can teach mixing is just to show you what I do. And hopefully you take something away from that, but not the specific stuff. And it's proven over and over, because I screenshot every single Chad Blake video that's ever been made, and none of it ever works for me. at
Right.
all, not even a little
Right.
bit, which makes me so
Right.
angry.
And then you yell at him when you see him.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm gonna actually do a little link drop for John in the chat. John does do one-on-one mixing, and it's mix-therapy.com. There
Yeah.
we go.
He's amazing.
Yeah, and it's exactly what you said, and it's funny because he'll a lot of like what he does with me though. He'll say like, okay, do this, show me how you would do it, and he'll let you go through doing it, and the whole time you're like, oh God, I feel like I'm being set up, you know. And then he'll be like, all right, now do it like this, now do it like this, now go back and A/B these things, and then tell me what you heard, and it's kind of funny how it's like he sort of leads you down the path, and you know, like when you have a teacher like that, they sort of lead you to the discovery of it rather than them saying, listen for this. He's like, what do you hear?
Yeah.
What do you hear?
Yeah. I
What do
mean,
you hear?
it's the learning by rote thing. Like,
Mm.
okay, maybe times tables is okay to learn by rote, but not if you don't know how to multiply on paper. Like, you know, it's, yeah, the concept is so much more important than the how you get there.
Yeah. Yeah. Awesome. Sorry for the little
No,
side
it's good.
side plug there. Play my plug sound.
That's surprisingly similar to whatever the hell you played it for last.
That
Oh, it
was
was a plug
a
sound.
Puremix plug sound. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That's true. So I'm just trying to dry off this stupid cat.
Just gonna go back outside.
They're so fun. Like Mole, he'll come in soaking wet and like he has to get on my lap and do biscuits for like 20 seconds and then he gets off. And I'm soaked and there's mud.
Wait. What's biscuits?
You know when they
Oh yeah, like
put
they
on you?
need on your
Yeah, they're
yeah.
making biscuits. I mean, they're not.
Nice.
That's from getting the milk going with their
Okay.
mom. But yeah, making biscuits. You've never heard
Yeah.
that?
I've never heard that. I thought you were actually getting biscuits out of your cats, and I wasn't.
Yeah, no, no. My cats do not know how to bake.
Cat doesn't pay the rent, doesn't bake.
No, but
All right.
eats, pukes, brings in birds. You know,
We've made it to the current decade.
holy
It's
shit.
now 2020 with Apocalyptica's cello. Cello.
Easy for you to say,
Yeah, exactly.
apparently.
Yeah.
So Apocalyptica, very cool band. People should check them out. It's basically heavy metal with cellos. That's what they do.
Yeah.
And Joe Barresi had worked with them a bunch, and I think it was a scheduling thing, and he recommended me to mix this record with them, and it was awesome. It was because it's so different. It's not that the record was supposed to end up being very eclectic. The record was supposed to be a fucking metal record, but it's all cellos
Right.
and lots of cellos because a lot of times they're not playing chords, they're stacking to get the chords. And then there are 4 or 5 riffs and done in different registers. And so it took me a while to kind of figure out where I was going to go with it.
Hmm.
And then, yeah, I had to like build things that made sense for it. Like I had several different presets on plugins. I don't even remember what for each cello. And then I could apply those because, you know, it wanted to be somewhat consistent song to song, but it gave me some starting places for that. Yeah, it was really fun. And their roughs when they sent the sessions sounded amazing. Like they'd done a ton of work on the drums and it just sounded incredible. And it was, what was great about it is they said like, this is exactly what we wanted this to sound like. And that doesn't
Cool.
happen very often, you know.
Especially with
And
something like that. That's
yeah, and I mixed
yeah.
something else for them later, and you know, we ended up getting something that absolutely worked for them, but it was different. It just like I was struggling on it in a way I
Hmm.
hadn't on the first stuff. So there was just some synergy thing that happened on that record. And, you know, lots of tweaks to do because it's so complex with the arrangements and like, well, I can't hear enough of the third cello
Hmm.
at that point. And it's like making a chord. So it's really important that they're balanced the way they want to hear them and stuff like that. So it was intense and the sessions were huge, but it was really fun.
Nice. Yeah. Um, with the arrangements, did you ever run into stuff where you were having mixing troubles doing how things were arranged, or with that group, is it just amazing arrangements all the time?
No, it's there's such good musicians. It's insane.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
really quite insane what they play. Like, yeah, because
Mm.
you hear the concept and you think, oh, it's going to be a little something or other, but not at all. It's just badass.
Yeah. Very nice. When
Yeah.
so you trying to figure out a direction for that, what does that kind of look like for you? You know,
Well,
either with this record or others.
I knew the direction because the rough mixes were so good. Like, okay, this is what it's supposed to be, but it was figuring out instead of having one guitar tone, you've got, let's say, four cellos making up one part, and each one has a DI and an amp, and I think a distorted DI,
Mm.
because that's what would make up the tone. But as you rebalance, you really change, like, well, am I hearing the notes or am I hearing the distortion? And so just playing tiny, tiny bits of rebalancing within each part and then finding some overall processing that would help keep the parts like glued together, but separate enough that you could really hear what everybody was doing.
Mm.
And sometimes there's a lot going on. And each thing that's going on, like it wasn't like, oh, they just stacked up and made guitar parts. There were at least two or three parts going on at the same time, and each one of those parts might have been made up by five instruments. So there's just a shit ton of stuff going on. So it was more about just trying to make some space to get some 3D into the mix to make it just sound bigger than the really great roughs they already had. I mean, that was the goal.
Yeah. Awesome. Nice. Did it yeah, Dave Westner says, "Good Lord, was that a 230 track mix?"
No, I mean, I don't think it was 230, but I would
Mm.
imagine because the drums it was a big kit and all spot mics and um, that kind of thing. I'd imagine it was over 100, but no
Mm.
vocals, which is,
Yeah.
you know, basically drums and cello. And there was some bass. Actually, there may have been bass on every song. So, yeah, drums, bass, and then a fuck ton of cellos.
That's awesome. Uh, and a technical term
Yeah,
for a
metric
cacophony of
is the technical term.
yes. Yeah. Uh, we have a question here about a Spoon record, and I don't know what part I could tell them to go listen to.
Well, that's the only time I've ever worked with him.
Hmm.
And I mixed the one song, uh, Radio. I can't remember what it's called now. That's a Mark Rankin record. He was co-producing with them. I think he was co-producing. He certainly recorded the whole record. He was going back and forth to Austin, which is where Jim had his studio at that point, I think. Um, and he, yeah, did an amazing job tracking it, of course. And I think it was because either they were still recording or Mark was on something that I got a chance to mix this one song. And I mixed it really early on in the process because they took a long time. And I think COVID may have come into it as well. It must have because I mixed it here. Um, and so almost a year later, I ended up revising the mix because I said,
Wow.
"Hey, so now we got the rest of the record done. Can we?" And when I heard the mix, it was like, "Oh yeah, yeah, we can revisit that." But the thing about that is that I fanboyed on them so hard when I actually managed to start emailing with them. Like I am, I'm a big Spoon fan, but they have an EP called the Soft Effects EP, and the first song on there is called Mountain to Sound. It was done on either 4 track or 8 track. The entire EP was done on 4 track or 8 track, depending on the song. And I don't remember which, but Mountain to Sound is one of my favorite fucking things I have ever heard. Like
Nice.
that's something I can put on at any point and it's just awesome. And it starts to fade out and it gets really interesting during the fade out. Like it's different stuff. And so I was just all over like, hey, what happened after the fade? And like, that's amazing. What was going on? And uh, I was told that they think they have a mix without it fading. And I was told that I might be given a copy of this said mix, and I have not been given a copy of this said mix. So I hate them. No, I love them, but I think they found it. I don't know if I embarrassed myself or not, but they were very cool about it because yeah, that track is insane. I mean, the one I mixed is great. Like I really like what they do, but that particular track is just fucking awesome.
Nice. I put it in the chat for everybody. I'm also going to put it in the one that you mixed.
Something radio on the radio. What's it called?
Which one?
The song that I mixed.
Oh, Lucifer on the Sofa?
No, that's the album.
The song.
I only mixed one song on it.
Let's find out.
I can tell you in a second here. I'll tell you.
On this exciting episode of Mark and Andrew Surf the Internet.
Yeah. What year did that come out? You said that was 2020?
Yeah.
Was it?
Let's see. It was 2022. Lucifer on the Sofa came out.
Yeah.
And I'm looking through Title. Great place.
Chad
Chad mixed on that record too. A lot of mixers on this record.
Yeah.
Mike Rinkin, Jim Eno, Chad Blake. And you mixed on the radio. Yeah.
Yeah, on the radio.
Awesome. Dave Friedman was on that one.
I'm really sad we never got to do the Dave Friedman interview. He was just so busy while we were doing the interviews, he could never do it.
We got to bring it back.
It makes me exhausted just thinking about prepping for more of those, though. It's, as you know, by not prepping for this one.
I mean, you saw my prep. I have a list in front of me that I made. Yeah, definitely. Okay. You haven't done, well, Steve Lillywhite got up there, but I don't think you've done 7 episodes with one guest.
No. We were going to do a third one with Eric Valentine.
Yeah.
And we did 3 with Steve Lillywhite, but that's because we were starting at 1 a.m. his time. So I think those were all about 2.5 hours.
True.
And we were going to do a part 2 with Manny, but I think we only did 1. No, we did 2. We did 2 with Manny. We were going to do 3, and that didn't happen either.
Right. See?
He's busy actually mixing records.
You got people out there that are wondering where their third interview is. Every one of them on bated breath. Okay. Moving on down before we get to episode 8 is Hozier's Wasteland Baby. And
all right,
the new album.
Here's the first thing. We talked about pronouncing his name. I could have looked it up. Right after we finished, I looked it up on the internet, and there's a whole video cut together of everybody pronouncing his name wrong. I said Hozier. It's not Hozier. It's Hozier. Hozier. So I apologize, Andrew. He's not watching this. I do apologize because I'm somebody whose name gets spelled wrong constantly, and it bothers me. So to have your name said out loud wrong a lot is not good. So Hozier.
There we go. Hozier.
There you go. And nice. We can just talk about all of the Hoziers since the first record at once, because we did talk about the first record, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And I'm pretty sure we talked about the second record already when we talked about Hozier. But so he's got the new record, and then he just put out an EP, and the song Too Sweet from that EP was #1 in the UK, Ireland, some other places, and I don't know where it's charting in the States, but you could search the internet right now.
I can do
so
that.
It's done really well.
32 billion streams.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I actually got an email from the label where his label is awesome, Ruby Works, and they're in Ireland. And obviously, the album is licensed to Warner Brothers and to Sony in different territories and things like that. But Ruby Works is still the label. That's who I deal with. And they actually sent me an email. Niles sent me an email to say, hey, man, congratulations. He's number 1 in Ireland.
That's
Like, who
awesome.
does that? That's
Yeah.
fucking great.
Yeah. That's great. Uh, Sorry, the name of the song again while I'm searching the
Too
charts.
sweet.
Too Sweet. Cool.
Wikipedia is good at the charts thing, aren't they?
Yeah, I don't know how current. Oh, 2 hours ago, Hozier's Too Sweet ascends to number 1 from number 2 on the Billboard Hot 100 Songs chart.
That's good.
Hold on then.
So where is it in the chart?
Peak position is number 2 right now. This is on the Billboard Hot 100.
Is that the main? That's the chart, right?
That's the chart.
That's
That's
the
the
song
chart.
chart as opposed to the album chart.
Yeah. Yeah, the
There
Hot
you go.
100's only songs.
Number 2. Who's number 1?
That would be Future and Kendrick Lamar and Metro Boomin with Like That. You have
Fuck
the
that.
number 2 song on the Hot 100 right now.
Crazy.
I have that in my notes that I prepared before the show because I was going to say
Yeah.
congratulations about it.
Thanks, man.
Yeah,
That's awesome.
that's awesome. Guys,
I'm surprised you even knew that.
that's great. That's not a good crowd sound.
Yeah, it is. It's better if it's kids.
Yeah, there you go. That's true.
Yeah.
Nice. That's amazing. Did
Yeah.
you know? You didn't know that?
No, I had no idea where it was charting in the States.
There you go.
There you go.
Yeah,
I think
very
what
cool.
the email said was it's number 1 in Ireland. It's the biggest thing since Take Me to Church. That's what the email said. And I mean, biggest thing since could be anything because Take Me to Church was like fucking ridiculous.
Yeah,
But yeah, it's very cool. I'm so happy for him. He's so talented and he is such a nice guy.
yeah.
Had his video about the Australian and New Zealand gigs come out? Did we talk about that last time? I
I
don't know.
don't think so.
So apparently it's been a while since he toured in the Antipodes, as they're known collectively. And so he put a video up on Instagram announcing the tour dates, but he did it by reading presumably Instagram messages or comments or something from people there saying you have to come tour. And like one of them was this woman said something like, if you don't come and play in Australia, I don't know what's going to happen to me, or I don't know who I'm going to become, or something like that. And he reads that, and then he looks at the camera. He says, "Well, I'm fucking terrified of who you become, so I'm coming."
That's great.
And the whole video is just him reacting in real time to these things he's being fed, and he's
That's cool.
hilarious.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Nice. Love when people don't take themselves too seriously. That's great.
Yeah, and it's interesting that this song that's so huge is on an EP that's following up the record. I mean, it's not like they did it in between the album and the EP because he's been on tour constantly promoting this record. So presumably the song was cut before they even made the track listing for the record, and
Wow.
it ended up here instead, and off it goes. So it just speaks
Yeah.
to how much material he's got that's good.
Wow. Yeah.
Really good.
Right. And interesting if it was held back from the record. Right.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I would assume that it may not have been mixed yet or something like that. Well,
Mhm.
obviously it wasn't, because I mean, what I meant was it may not have been like finished production
Oh, right.
at that point, because obviously I mixed it, so it wasn't mixed yet. There was a song though that I had mixed towards the end of the album process and then never got notes on, and then that's on the EP as well, with just like a couple of notes that came up.
Mhm.
So yeah, I think this was very much a pool of songs, and I don't know who makes the decisions, but probably Andrew's heavily involved in those. And it's probably as much about just what belonged together on the record as far as he was concerned.
Yeah.
And then the 4-song EP later on, and now it's blowing up.
That's amazing. All right, I'm going to put the link in the chat so we can all go help it stay there and get to number one. That's
Yeah,
really
just
awesome,
start
Andrew.
streaming it in
Congrats.
the background right now.
Yeah,
Everybody.
exactly. Just put it on loop. Everybody put it on loop.
Yep.
Going to get you to 33 billion streams.
It's so ridiculous. You know
That's
what's stupid is this service that aggregates this stuff.
mhm.
Like you can sign up and for free you can see some number, but you can't see the total number of streams. You have to pay for that. So they do a
Mm.
trial. So I did the trial, and then I've already canceled. Shh.
I
But
was going to say,
like,
you're going to forget to
there's a
cancel and it's going to
button.
cost you a lot.
There's a button that says order plaque,
Mm-hmm.
and it's basically exactly what I posted, but on a plaque.
Plaque.
And like, I don't know, that just feels there's something. Yeah, anyway, buying yourself something like that always feels a little weird.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. All right. Pan the camera around your room. Let's see the plaque.
I don't have it.
Nice. Cool. Well, that is really awesome. Congratulations. When this has happened to you before, hitting the Hot 100, Danny California and many others.
Yeah, I
Adele.
don't know about many others, but certainly Danny California was big. I'm pretty sure that was number one. I seem to remember it came out against something else, though, that sort of obliterated it for a minute. Yeah, it's amazing. It's
Yeah.
amazing. I mean, that's the statistical version of pulling up alongside a car where someone is singing the thing at the top of their lungs, you know?
Yeah.
Because like you can't deny that, because what that means, it doesn't mean that so many people are listening to it. It means that people are listening to that more than they're listening to other stuff.
Mm-hmm. Right. Yeah. It also means that it resonates with people, though, and you achieved great art. That's
Yeah.
awesome.
Yeah. So to be
Yeah.
a part of that, I mean, look, and the song's amazing. The production is incredible. The mix wasn't that hard because it was so good. Like,
Yeah.
the raw material was there. It's not like I created it. I'm not going to
Mm-hmm.
take too much credit for it, but to be able to be part of that it's amazing. Really
Yeah.
amazing.
Awesome. All right. Ricardo asks, "Are we going to do Q&A?" We are going to do Q&A
Yes, absolutely. We're
in a
gonna do
little bit
Q&A.
as we continue blasting through this list to get there.
Yeah,
Uh,
we got about another hour of this and then Q&A.
yeah, we got a far cry from Sharonova, the Blue Hour.
So did we talk about the fact that I had a Grammy nomination last year that I did not win, but that I had a
No,
Grammy nomination? Okay.
we have not talked
So
about
that is for this record. So it is an amazing project. It's a classical record,
that.
and it is 5 contemporary female composers, Sharonova from My Brightest Diamond being one of the composers, and then she also sang. And it is for string orchestra, which is a far cry. That's the name of the string orchestra, and they do lots of records. And Shara singing, and then some sound design, so some sound effects mixed in with the orchestra.
Awesome.
And it's 40 pieces, most of them quite short, some of them a few minutes. And I was on Zoom while the strings are being recorded, because it was on the East Coast, Connecticut, I think, but I could be wrong. And was pretty involved. I mean, obviously these composers are amazing, but there were things where I just knew this will not sound the way everybody wants it to sound unless we do this. So things like when we were talking about the setup, I had heard demos of a lot of the pieces, and I've done this before with string dates, where traditionally, if you set up an orchestra, the basses are off to the side; they're off to the conductor's right. That's just what happens, and you want that low end in the middle. You just do. So I wanted the upright basses in the middle, and a couple of things like that. But for the most part, they have a great engineer, Jesse, who records all their stuff. And so I just told him a few things that I would really like, and then he recorded. And the string ensemble, they have no conductor. The principal violinist sort of gets things started and whatever, but they all play. There's no conductor. They're used to doing alternate techniques. There are cues, well, not cues because it's not a film score. There are pieces where they sing. There are pieces where they mumble. Like they are the pieces, is them playing and making some sounds, and then Shara has a beautiful, beautiful voice, is
Hmm.
singing. And because it was so many pieces, I got to kind of fuck around while I was mixing. So there's one that's going through speakerphone and it's being automated the whole time. And it's like really a scratchy bowing technique anyway, near the bridge, and very, very scratchy. And so I just really amplified that, and it opens up and opens up, and they add octaves, but it never gets clean. And then it goes back small again. The album ends with over a minute of reverb because
Cool.
I spent a really long time building reverbs. I have famously said, infamously, that I'm bad at reverb. Like, it's just, there's some people who can build reverbs and they're awesome and it's great. And I'm not good at it. So I spent probably 3 days just building reverbs.
Hmm.
So I had 6 reverbs that were in a template, a special template I made for this. It was my usual template, but then plus these reverbs. Um, and those were starting points, and 4 of them I used on pretty much everything, different balances. And then 2 were kind of starting places, but they were weird. But it really made me think about reverb heavily during this thing because I just felt like if they all sound the same, it's not going to be boring because the writing is great, but it's not going to be the journey that it could be. And the 5 different composers all write very differently. And even within their batches of the pieces, they were all very different. Like there's one where it's pretty contemporary writing and intervals and melodies and things like that. And then they go into part of the Brandenburg Concerto. And then they come back out to the other writing and then back in again. And there's a total scene shift with the reverbs between those 2 sections because they go from these longer things that wanted to swim a little bit into the Brandenburg Concerto, which is it's fast and precise and shorter bowing and all of that. So
Hmm.
it really made me think about it all the way through for every single piece. Plus, because of the way we were recording, we split things up. So we didn't just track the entire arrangement. We would do on a few of the pieces, for instance, we would do the pits basses separately because I knew that I really wanted to go nuts on the low end and I was going to need the far mics on their own. And then there were some where there were violin harmonics, and
Hmm.
I knew those would want to have their own effects. So we would do that. So the piece got musically split for the recording because we had ideas of what we were going to do. And I had notes from some of the composers about particular pieces. So at the end, it had been such a journey that it felt like it needed something special at the end. And musically, it's fantastic at the end, but it just sort of ends. And it's like, well, but that's not fun. And the only way to make it last was to put it into this endless reverb. And
Nice.
so, like, the reverb could have gone for 5 or 6 minutes, probably. And it was done. It started as an impulse response reverb, but then I put it on the maximum time and then did an impulse response of that. Then put that on the maximum time. So I stretched the impulse 3 times, something like that,
Whoa.
so that it's a bit unnatural, but it's fucking long. Like
Wow.
it has a native reverb time of a lot
Yeah.
because it's been stretched and then re-impulsed. So, and like with Altiverb, it's really easy to do an impulse response of a reverb. They give you a test tone, you make the files, you load them up, crank the time again, do it again, load them up. So, and there's something really emotional about it to me. Like you listen to that and the way it just carries on, I don't
Hmm.
know, it changes the story of the ending a bit. It's not like, well, that's all the music we wrote and thanks for listening and it's amazing, but now we're done. It's like, oh, that never finishes. This goes
That's
on for a
really,
time. So it's the way I
yeah.
hear it. But like I was doing weird, crazy delays on some of the strings, and they were totally cool with it, which was amazing. I don't think we
Yeah.
backed out of any of the weird stuff that I did.
Wow.
So
That's
I highly
that's awesome.
recommend listening to that project. It's really extraordinary.
So I'm trying to look it up to give everybody a link on here, and
It's called the Blue Hour. If you search for the Blue Hour featuring Sharon Nova, you'll find it.
okay, let me do that.
And so anyway, so I was actually nominated along with Jesse and the other engineers for a Best Engineered Album Classical Grammy. That's my first Best Engineer nomination ever, and it was in the classical category, which is amazing. I did not win it.
You've been busy. You're at
Well,
number two on the Billboard Hot 100. You got a
you
Grammy
should have
nomination.
you should have held the applause though, because I lost.
That's, it happens.
I know, but still, I mean, top
You got
five.
nominated.
That's
Yeah,
insane. And hopefully, the people who voted listened enough to realize how weird it was. Because I mean, there's a lot of stuff that is just very straight orchestral sounding, and I think I managed to make that sound really good. But what I love about it is the journey you go on listening, because there's so much very not traditional ways things went.
that's
So
amazing. I don't know why I'm having such a hard time finding this thing. There's
where are
Angelica
you looking
Negron.
for it?
I'm on Songwhip,
Song Whip,
which is like a link aggregator, so I don't have to send somebody to Spotify that has a allergic reaction to Spotify.
like
So
myself.
yes,
Make a music link.
I found
So
number three a black map.
yeah, because they
Those are just the songs, though. Those are like individual song links, and then matching records. I can't find a matching record for it.
uh yeah, number one prologue, number 10. Yeah, there it is. Here, I will put it in the chat and you can put it to the masses. Do
Awesome,
we have
thank
a
you.
chat?
We have a
I'll
chat.
I'll text it to you
All right.
so you can listen later, even when the chat's gone.
Yes, amazing. Okay,
There you go.
cool. I'll keep that for myself. And
Episode 7 of Andrew and Mark Search the Internet.
that's right. Awesome. Okay, cool. Oh, somebody else is helping out too in the chat. Thanks, guys. Awesome. Do you think that all of this crazy recent success is tied to not
These
doing
interviews.
the interviews?
To me, not doing the other interviews,
Yeah, yeah.
I don't know what it
Or
is.
specifically to me interviewing you.
Yes. Oh God, yes.
Yes. Right.
That is absolutely it. I mean, that's how I got discovered. It's like,
Yes.
oh, you're that guy from the Mark Abrams show.
Oh my God. All right. Moving on.
No, I've just been look. There's okay. There are mix engineers who influence projects way more than I do. Like you get Serban or Mandy to mix a record in the genres that they're ridiculously great at, and it's going to make more people like it than otherwise. But
Mm.
I'm working on amazing materials sometimes. That's what that is. You know.
Well, they know who to call.
You know.
Okay. All right. Moving on
Moving on.
to Florence and the Machine.
Florence and the Machine. So I got a call about mixing a track by Nicholas Britell. I'm almost positive I got his name right. So this is because Florence did a song with him for the 101 Dalmatians movie, the live action version of that came out a few years ago. And it was great. And so I mixed it, and it went really well. And I was thinking when I got the email, like, man, I know this name. And then I realized that he was the guy who did the theme for Succession. That is what the show is called,
Yeah.
right? With the
Yeah.
voice, yeah. That has the best low end of just about anything I've ever heard. That is one of the coolest
Huh.
sounding bits of music I've ever heard on a TV show. Like, and so he did the theme. So I fanboyed all over him about that,
Ah,
which
cool.
is amazing. And then they put the song on the next Florence and the Machine record, which is weird because it's, I mean, it is a Disney song. It's super cool,
Yeah.
but it's a Disney song from 101 Dalmatians, but it made it onto her record as well. So,
Yeah.
um, you know, that's
Nice.
pretty good.
Yeah. That's awesome.
So, not a huge amount to say about it, but it was really fun to do. But to be able to talk to the guy who's did that theme was awesome.
Did you
Never
learn
got to
anything
interact
from it?
directly. What's that?
Did you learn anything from it? Like from talking with him about that piece? Any
No,
cool
he just said
takeaways?
thanks.
Yeah. So he's like, thanks.
Yeah,
Oh, that's awesome. Let's see here. That was harder than hell is the record,
yeah, um,
and I'm gonna post that to everybody right now.
yeah.
He says, let's see.
Track it is. It should be rather obvious, I would think. Um,
That's why I love
Track
title.
list.
I should get some kind of like
Well, it's pretty obvious. It's "Call Me Cruella."
right. Okay,
Yeah.
got it. And call me Cruella. Here comes the link, guys. I know you could look it up yourselves, but it just makes me
But
feel
this keeps
useful.
people having to talk to me.
It does, and just have awkward silence in between. And I'm pasting this link from my notes that I prepared before the show
Oh, right. Yeah.
that I spent
Obvious.
hours on. Okay. Uh, cool. So here we go on to the next one. We talked about Spoon
Yep.
already, but Spoon was the next on the list. Um, okay, here we go. St. Paul and the Broken Bones.
St. Paul and the Broken Bones are a fine band that a man named Matt Rossbang produced. And he produced it and recorded it, and then for some reason wanted me to mix one of the songs. And it I think it was a little bit out of keeping with the like what people were expecting from them, because
Mm,
I don't know, it's like almost like a 70s funk disco kind of thing in a
yeah.
way. And it was great. It was really fun. I don't think I did anything in particular on it, but I did it, and getting to work with Matt is great. I mean, it's also terrifying. You're really good friends with someone who's really talented and does their own stuff all the time, and then all of a
Mm,
sudden it's like, wow, they're not even going to like me anymore because I'm going to
right.
fuck this up. Like, it's not going to go well, and that'll be the end of our friendship because I've ruined something.
Right.
But fortunately, it went well. I mean, it took some back and forth because I think it was figuring out what it was going to be.
Mm.
But it was really fun, and just the one track. And again, I don't remember the track, so because I don't remember anything.
Was it The Last Dance?
Hold on, I'll tell you. Where is it? Where is it? St. Paul and Broken Bones track listing. Uh, It might be The Last Dance. I need to hear a little bit of it. You're going to have to pull some up. How's that
I
going to
got
work?
hold on here. Uh, I'll check the credits on Spotify on this episode of Mark and Andrew Search the Internet.
Yeah.
It says that Matt mixed the whole record, the whole
Does it?
Alien Coast. Yeah,
Really?
yeah.
I'm not even listed.
No, good
That's
job, title.
awesome. Wow.
All Music says that, or no, All Music doesn't say anything about that. Well, there you go. Let's call Matt. Let's phone a friend.
Yeah. It's kind of fucked up.
Yeah.
Uh, wow. Why am I seeing a totally different record on Apple Music? What's going on here?
Sorcery.
The
Let's get
Alien
Matt on
Coast.
and ask him if he remixed it.
Yeah. Why am I
Nice.
not? There
Oh,
can't be.
while we're searching for that, Nico says that Succession's theme got a Emmy in 2019 for the best main theme.
It absolutely should have. It's
Yeah.
amazing. So they don't have this record on Apple Music. That's ridiculous.
Oh man. Well, I'm gonna randomly, without explanation, send this link to Matt, and we'll see if he wants to join and tell us what happened.
Yeah. Oh, they've got them listed twice. Once with an ampersand and once with the word and.
Ah.
So it's, yeah, so that record is, okay, so hold on. Hold on. Yeah, The Last Dance.
Nice.
That's it. Glad
Cool,
we
there you
sorted
go.
that. But
Yeah.
apparently I
Solved.
have no mixed credit on it. That's nice to know.
On title. But chat room, here is the link. Awesome. We'll let's see, to make up for our internet browsing, let's answer Er's question here. He says, I would love that Andrew would talk quickly about his synclavier days and if he worked with Peter Wolf. We did do a lot of synclavier talk on episode 1.
Yeah, we talked a lot, and it's easy because it's the beginning of episode 1.
Yeah.
So if you want to hear in depth, that's where to go. And I didn't work with Peter, but I went and fixed his synclavier a few times, or did an upgrade and hung out for a bit. And super cool guy, but I didn't actually do any work with him. So yeah. But the
That's a fun
synclavier days,
episode, though.
yeah, we talked quite a bit about that, I think.
Yeah.
So
Lots of good stories in there too. It's pretty cool for the uninitiated. That's a lot of how Andrew started his career.
it is.
All right. Okay, let's see. Next up, another band that starts with S. And the singer has a B in his name. Smashing Pumpkins. Come on, that's a good segue.
What kind of clues is that? I spy with my little eye.
Yeah, exactly.
Beginning with S.
And a pumpkin.
Yeah. So I need to look up names because I can't not know anybody's name. Like,
His name
that's
is Billy
not
Corgan.
cool. Yeah, and Billy Corgan, I know. Dickhead. So, okay.
So the record is
So
Adam.
I got an email from, and I'm gonna just scroll because I got it from Howard Willing, who's been working with Billy for a little while. So he was tracking this record, and it's a triple record, Atom, and it's a lot of songs. And I don't know how any of the decisions were made exactly, but they had decided that there were certain songs certain people were going to mix. So Dave Schiffman did some, Ryan Hewitt did some, I did some. I'm positive. I mean, Howard must have done some as well. And that may have been it. And it was really cool. Like, I don't know exactly why it came up. Like, oh, we'll have Andrew do that, but it was very nice that it did. I mean, Smashing Pumpkins. Though, to be fair, there was. I used to send Rick Rubin an email on his birthday every year, like, "Hey, happy birthday, Rick!" And like, there was I think it was during Stadium Arcadium where it was his birthday, and because I was just starting a song, I sent him an email that said, "Hey, happy birthday! And for your birthday, I'm not going to send you a mix today." And in his typical fashion, he said, "Okay, great." And then it's like, he probably means that, actually. He doesn't want to hear one of my mixes today. So anyway, so I would send him in emails, and he responded this one year. This is before this album, and said, "Oh, hey, actually, we're just finishing up a Smashing Pumpkins record. You want to do some test mixes on it?" And I'd already decided after all the test mixes, I wasn't going to do any test mixes anymore. I don't remember if I talked about this or not. Probably
no,
not.
but you should.
So I got 2 songs sent to me. And Dana Nielsen had been tracking it and working with the band. And I mean, Dana's an amazing engineer.
Hmm.
And I got the sessions and I got his rough mixes, and they were like, they sounded great, and they were not processed. Like there was a bunch of shit going on.
Hmm.
And so like, okay. And so it was really hard because I knew you wouldn't have a rough like that the band didn't like. Like that was not going to happen. So I spent a really long time trying to stay true to that, and some of it just trying to recreate it. Like, how do I do this? And they had been doing it, I'm assuming, at Shangri-La. So it was done on an API. So it wasn't like there was a session that just reflected the rough. I had to
Yeah.
recreate and then try and make it even bigger and whatever. And so finally, it had to have taken me over a week to do the two songs. And I sent them, and Rick said, "Oh man, sounds great." And then I got a call. I mean, there was no way in hell those mixes were done, but this was just the shootout thing. And he said,
Yeah.
"Great." And I get an email from Dave, who works with him, saying, "Hey, Rick told me to send you the record." So I get a link and I start downloading the record. And then I was prepping everything and I started in, and then it happened again where I get an email that says, "Hey, man, so Billy's more comfortable just having Dana mix because they've been working together on this record for so long." And like, I can't fault them. And
Yeah.
it's not like Dana isn't good. He's great. So, but it was like, fucking hell, this is why I don't do test mixes. And
Hmm.
especially not for
Yeah.
Rick, because it's always that way where it's there. I won shootouts several times and did not mix the records. And this
Hmm.
was another one. And it's like, okay, I can't do this again. I'd forgotten this is exactly why I don't do them. So anyway, years later, and I don't know if it's anything to do with that, because Billy may not even have heard those. He may have already decided that Dana was going to mix the
Right.
record.
Right.
So anyway, they get in touch, and one of the things about it is the original band. And as far as I know, it's the first time that it was both James and Jimmy, James Ehad and Jimmy Chamberlain on the
Mhm.
record in forever. So it's like, this is fucking Smashing Pumpkins.
Yeah.
Like, this isn't, I mean, obviously it's always Smashing Pumpkins, but like that's the
Yeah.
Smashing Pumpkins that everybody knew when they exploded. And so that was
Right.
super exciting. Howard Willing is a ridiculously good engineer. And so I got sent the tracks. I think I ended up mixing 8 or something like that. And it all sounded really, really good. And I did a video for one of your competitors or whatever. There's a video
Friends
on Friends,
with the
a
mix
video
of the
on Mix of the
masters.
Masters
Hold on.
of
Hold on. Hold
one of
on.
the
We got
tracks.
to give them the proper. There we go.
Yeah. All right. So there's a video about one of the songs, and it was a really interesting thing because in the end of the song it goes to some palm mutes. So gong gong gong, and they were like slightly out of tune with the bass. And I was thinking, like, man, everything is so deliberate. Like, is that on purpose? And I just thought, man, I've got to do something about that. So I tuned them, just pitched them until they worked with the bass. And each one was slightly different because the strings bend a little bit and whatever.
Mm.
But once I got it, the bottom just dropped. It became fucking huge.
Wow.
And well, if anyone says anything, I'll put them back, but I'm not going to say a word. And I'm just, because it's not that big a deal. It was
Yeah.
palm mute. Like
Right.
most guitars, you don't think about that as having pitch. It's an effect
Yeah.
chunk. And that was awesome. Because
Wow.
I thought, like, this is going to happen if I get it right. Because one of them was really close. And it's like, well, that one sounds way bigger than the rest. But the first 7 I mixed, I sent, and they're like, great. There are no mix notes. Like, none.
That's
Which is
awesome.
insane. Like, that never happened. I mean, first of all, it's a testament to how well recorded and how good the arrangements are. That, like, they knew what it was going to be. But, some of the stuff was real soundscapey with a bunch of synths. And it's not like I just put up the tracks and didn't touch things. I mixed. Editing the guitars, that felt like Billy Corgan knows what the fuck he's doing. But
Yeah.
obviously it wasn't a focus to get those in tune with the bass. It was about the thump on the thing. So, and then kind of late on, they sent me another song and said, "Hey, we got one more for you to mix." And like, okay. And so I mixed it, and it felt like, I don't know, it didn't feel as right as the other ones did. And I sent it, and they're like, well, this isn't really it. I think they were looking for something different out of it. And
Mm-hmm.
so I did it a bit different. And they said, no, it's like more, not gospel, but like, I don't know, there was something. And they finally said a word that made it click in my head. And like, okay, and completely redid the mix and sent it. And they said, yeah, that's it. And no comments again. Like,
Nice.
it was amazing, absolutely amazing. So,
Yeah.
yeah, and again, never talked to Billy, which is a shame.
Yeah.
And they just played a show in Birmingham with Weezer, which would have been hilarious to go, and
Yeah.
see everybody. But it just didn't work out that I could go.
Oh,
Yeah,
that's a
which is,
bummer because how cool would that be? Like, yeah,
yeah.
working with both bands and yeah, man. Okay, I have a lot of questions. So I'm fuzzy on you did the shootout, then you
Oh,
mixed a bunch of
that was a
songs in the record.
previous record. Yeah,
Previous record. Got it. Okay,
yeah.
got it.
That wasn't the same record at all.
Yeah. Let's talk about the shootout thing for a second. Like how those happen and the psychology behind that, how that feels.
There are a lot of different aspects to it. I mean, if you're starting out and you get the chance to do a test mix for someone, it's not stupid to do it. Like, it makes
Yeah.
sense.
Right.
My feeling is you should always get paid something
Mm-hmm.
for it. And what I try and do is like half what my mix rate would be.
Mm-hmm.
But with Rick, you don't do that. Like, they're not going to pay for the shootouts. And
Yeah.
so, like, famously, not famously, but at one point, Rich Costi said, like, he's too busy. Like, he was on fire
Mm-hmm.
producing news and all this other stuff. And he said, look, I can't do free test mixes. So he just stopped doing test mixes.
Yeah.
And there are two ways it can go. One is you can absolutely get the gig because they hear it and they go, oh, man, that's awesome. But here's the problem. Except on that Pumpkins record, there are always revisions. There's stuff you
Mm-hmm.
don't get right either because they weren't really sure about something. And now that they've heard, it's like, oh, well, actually, we should do
Yeah.
this. Or you just missed the point on some stuff. So you go back and forth.
Mm-hmm.
The test mix is you just deciding what the hell it's going to be. And yeah, you get it to the point where if this were the first mix you sent to the artist, they'd be like, okay, cool. And
Yeah.
here are our notes on it. But instead, they listen to it as if it's the final mix.
Right.
So psychologically, you're fucked.
Yeah.
Because if it's not like a record that they would put out immediately, like, no, failed. Yeah, I
Right.
really like this one, but the guitars aren't right. So instead of saying, like, hey, the guitars aren't right, but everything
Yeah.
else is awesome, it's just like, well, this mix isn't right. And the other thing that can happen is the person who refuses to do a test mix, they just assume, like, well, that person's going to get it, and they get the gig. Like, if someone doesn't blow them away, you're the people who would do mixes for free, and the other one wouldn't even do it. And so it's like,
Right.
well, fuck, let's pay that guy, because
Yeah.
obviously we didn't have the right people doing the shootout.
Right. And that's a classic sales/marketing thing where if you underprice yourself, they won't consider you a valuable proposition.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, it's the definition of the word worthless is you're not worth anything. And
Right.
so I I always say that it's a bad idea to do stuff for free. There are times when you need to, and it'll be good for you to do it, but always try and get paid something. Get $50,
Mm-hmm.
just get something, and then the band is invested in the mix.
Right.
It isn't
Right.
just like something that's like, yeah, whatever.
Yeah.
When you
Yeah.
pay for something, you really evaluate it. You don't
Mm-hmm.
worry about if it's perfect. It's like, oh, okay, that's actually pretty cool, because you don't want to have wasted your money, so you pay attention to it more,
Right.
I would say.
Right. There's also, yeah, I mean, everybody's different with this and handles rejection in different ways, but I've heard stories of people being like, I won't do them because I'd rather not get the record than lose the text mix because that'll knock me out of my zone for a day or two while I'm figuring out why I didn't win it or whatever, you know? Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, for it's weird with all of my imposter syndrome and things like that. That's not like there's something freeing about it being a test mix because they're not going to give you notes, so fuck them. You know what I
Mm,
mean? Like you really just go for
go
what
for it.
you want in a way, which is what I do anyway. But it feels a little more free and like there's less jeopardy
Yeah.
because, like, well, if I don't get the gig, I don't get the gig, and I just
Like,
did a
it's my
mix. And
mix, whatever. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. But like on that earlier Pumpkins record, like I put a huge amount of time into it because
Yeah.
that's what it took to do something that you knew even had a chance.
Mm,
So it's yeah, I don't know. It's a blessing and a curse, and I would never say don't do it. I used to just say don't do it, but there are reasons why you should. You should always try and get at least a little bit of money for doing it.
yeah. Yeah. Smoking Fudo says, I came here late, but the last 5 minutes seemed like the story of Fiverr gigs. Smashing Pumpkins was not a Fiverr gig.
No.
Okay, this is a question, or yeah, from Six of One. I know we're not a Q&A yet, but it's timely. In your earlier days, did you ever compromise on your own viewpoint on a mix in favor of the viewpoint of someone with more money or in more powerful connections? That's a
I
yeah.
don't quite understand the question. Like, who would it be who's involved that I would have to compromise it with? So, if they want to clarify a
Mhm.
little bit, I mean, it doesn't matter about money or power if the artist doesn't like the mix. You've got to change it. Like, yes,
Mhm.
and it's not even compromising my viewpoint. My viewpoint is the first mix that I send, and then I'll have opinions about what they want to change. And I would find ways to change them that don't, to me, take away from other things. And if I feel like something's really going to affect the mix, I'll mention it and say, look, I did this, but here's what I'm hearing. And 90% of the time, they don't care about that thing or they wouldn't have asked for what they asked for anyway. And every once in a while, they say, oh, yeah, 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 I hear what you're saying. What if we
Mm.
did this instead? You know, and they'll find a compromise that they're happy with. But it's never my record. You know, even the low roar records where I am as involved as you can possibly be, when Mike or Ryan would say something, like, you know, I'd change it.
Yeah.
So, because that's what you do.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I'm curious
Because
if I
they're the
missed the
client.
point.
Well, he
Yeah,
added
well,
that. Yeah.
so if you're the artist, you should never have to give up. Now, you might want to say, like, well, you know what? This person has made so many records that I love that maybe I should listen to them. But if you don't like it better than what you started with, then you can't live with it.
Hmm.
It's like what if you let a producer change your songs to the point where you don't like it. It's exactly the same thing that'll happen if you chase something. If you say, I really like it like this, but if we do it this other way, it'll probably make more money.
Mm.
You have
Right.
absolutely no way of knowing what's going to make money. And it's much better to have a record that didn't really catch on that you love than a record that didn't catch on that you don't love because you compromise stuff based on something that it turns out didn't work out.
Yeah. Yeah. Sort of trusting yourself, right? And
Yeah, I mean, and definitely take advice. Like, you wouldn't be working with that producer mixer if you didn't think like they had something to add.
hmm.
But yeah, you've got to be honest about it too. It can't be just that you're being stubborn. It has to be that you listen to it and you think like, nah. Like with My Brightest Diamond, with the last record I did, uh, A Million and One, we had it mastered. Are you wet moles here? He's not wet, which is good. Come on, mole. Come on up. Is he coming? No. So we had it mastered, and she was listening. She said, I don't know if I like the master. Like, it was very, very subtle. It was basically a flat master, but you know, there's sample rate conversion, there's stuff involved.
Hmm.
And those mixes are very dynamic and open compared to everything else I've ever mixed. And she wasn't really sure about it because she couldn't pinpoint like sonically what it was. And I said, look, this may sound ridiculous and I don't want it to sound condescending at all. but just put on each version and dance around. Because I know she gets physically
Mm.
really into music. And she said as soon as she did it, it was so obvious that the unmastered was better.
Wow.
Because that's what it's about. It's not about, is the bass better? What I mean, it is about that, but it's not about that, because you
Yeah.
could make stuff sonically like, yes, it's cleaned up and it's clear and blah blah blah, but if it doesn't make you want to dance around as much as the other version, then don't use it.
Yeah. That's fantastic.
But
That's
that's how you need to
yeah.
assess the stuff too. You can't assess it based on, oh, I don't know, I don't think the bass is clear enough on this version. Like if it turns out the bass being messy is what makes it awesome, like that Rival Sons track, then that's what you go with. And like it's I have a very thin skin with mixed comments. Like it I hate it when I miss the point on stuff.
Mm.
And everything feels like if I didn't get it right and they don't love it at first, then it's me and I fucked it up and I failed and all that. But I don't feel that way at all about other people's opinions of it, because I don't care what it sounds like. I care that I think it feels really good and the artist loves it.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah.
So I'm actually fine with criticism from other people, except the Metallica record where it was actually death threats. Like I'm not fine with that.
Yeah.
That's some bullshit.
You've got boundaries. Yeah.
Yeah.
Death threats.
So there you go.
Awesome. All right. That was fantastic. The mastering thing brings me back to the whole like it can change groove and all of that stuff, and that was probably what you were leading her toward with the get up and dance around.
Yeah,
That's
just
what
the
a great
feel.
story.
I mean, it could just be that some frequencies distract. And like, who knows
Mm.
why it is? Who knows? But
Yeah.
if it's not as good, it's not as good.
Yeah. That's another one of those things. There you go. If it's
Yeah,
not as good, it's not as good. Andrew Scheps.
yeah. Yogi Berra, really. You don't know who Yogi Berra is, do you?
No, this came up before though, and I can't remember because I looked it up after the show, and
Yeah, he has
I
some
forgot.
amazing things. Yeah, it did come up before
Yeah.
because I say stupid shit. But
Awesome. All right. We've got 3 left on the list.
3 left, and we got 14 minutes, and then we're on to Q&A. I suppose we got about 20 minutes, really, because we started a little late.
Yeah. Mostly because I was prepared and you were getting your stuff together.
Get my shit
Uh,
together.
yeah, yeah. Thanks. Billy Gibbons.
Billy Gibbons. So Matt Sorum emailed me. He's famously a ridiculously famous drummer. And a few times over the years, he's emailed and said, oh man, I got this project. I'd love you to mix it. And like, it just hasn't worked out for whatever reason. And I don't know why. And I love the fact that he gets in touch with me every once in a while to do something, but I'm not quite sure why,
Hmm.
since we hadn't worked together. But it's just amazing that he does this. And he got in touch and said, hey man, just finishing up this Billy Gibbons record and it's awesome and you should mix it. I'm like, fuck yeah. I had time. It was absolutely, and it was great. It's a really fun record. I mean, Billy, he's amazing. And again, absolutely no interaction with him at all. I sent the mixes with a link to Matt and he distributed them, and he's, one of the producers on the record. And yeah, but it was really fun because it's like swampy, exactly what you would expect.
Yeah.
And it's not as easy top record, but man, Billy, his voice is just, I mean, he's a ridiculous guitar player, but his voice is just insane. And so it just was a record that I was really happy to be mixing, not even because it was Billy. I mean, that's part of it, but it's just a great record. It's really
Yeah.
fun to listen to.
What is the name of this record?
Come on, man. Didn't you do your research?
No, it's not coming up in your all music.
Yeah, it is.
We both know I did my research.
Yeah, I know you did the research, but it didn't
Let's
come up
see.
because we saw it. Where the hell was it?
Was
I
it
think
on
we're
Wiki?
just going a little out of order, is all it is.
Gotcha.
Uh, Hardware.
Okay, awesome.
You got to roll back to 2021.
Ah, there it is. So you did this while you were in the middle of doing interviews.
Probably. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think it was a lockdown record,
Yeah.
which is
Okay.
why I had plenty of time. I had 3 days a week prepping for interviews and 4 days a week with absolutely nothing to do
Yeah, not making Bounce Factory.
except SoundFlow. Yeah.
Yeah. Jeez. That's, I mean, a question I get asked about you all the time is how does he have so much time? I don't
Pandemic,
know why I
baby.
would have that. Yeah, but I mean, still, like, it's pretty incredible. The, number two, Hot 100, Grammy
I mean,
nomination,
look, with the
Bounce
SoundFlow
Factory.
stuff, during the Bounce Factory time, I was in the studio either mixing or programming
Hmm.
from at the latest 10 in the morning until 2 in the morning, 7 days a week.
Yeah.
There's I mean, I'd go eat with Debbie and we'd hang out, maybe we'd watch something, but then I'd go back in the studio.
Mm.
And for me, learning to code was just absolutely fascinating, but it was more like I wrote Bounce Factory for me.
Yeah.
I had no idea it was going to be a thing that other people could use,
Yeah.
you know? So,
Right.
yeah, I just was going to sit in that fucking chair till I figured it out.
Yeah.
This
Which
fucking
is
chair.
awesome. Yeah. That same chair.
Yeah, yeah, this is the chair.
We could get a, what is it, Analoger that does the auction thing? Buy Andrew's chair that he
Yeah,
coded
Bounce
Bounce
Factory
Factory
chair.
from.
Feel free, man. It's fine.
Awesome.
I'll sell it. I can sit on
Um,
the floor.
okay, I'm gonna save that question for later for that person. We'll save that one. Q&A is coming up, guys. Start thinking about your
Yeah,
questions.
yeah.
All
And don't
right.
make it all about compressors and stuff.
Those are my questions,
Yeah.
as well as favorite EQ on a kick drum. Um, so that's it for hardware, Billy Gibbons. And next up, Marty Pellow, if I'm saying that right.
You have said that properly. Yes. So Marty Pellow, famously from a band, Wet Wet Wet, pop band in the UK, but they had a huge hit with a song that was in Three Weddings and a Funeral. I don't remember the name of the song. Huge fucking song. Probably played at every wedding for 12 years. Like every wedding, they had this song playing. So really successful, unbelievably nice guy. So I was doing a seminar, Mix with the Masters seminar down at La Fabrique, and he was there with his writing partner. And a shout out.
He was there with
And
his writing partner.
so he was there with a writing partner working on music for a particular project. And we just, we would talk. He'd be eating at the same time and we'd hang out a little bit. And a really nice guy. And that was it. So like we met and hung out a bit and I finished my seminar and went away and he was down there writing. And then I got a call. I think I got an email saying, would it be okay to call me? I'm like, fuck yeah, of course it is.
Mm-hmm.
Why not? Um, and he called up and he said, I've decided that I want you to produce my next record. And I said, Marty, I like you a lot, and that's a terrible idea. Like I don't produce the kind of music you're really good at. Like that's just not what I do.
Hmm.
And he said, no, I think you should produce my record. And so he sent me some demos and I just said, well, okay, I have to just tell him exactly what I think and how this should go. And so I did. And it was like, look, I think that this needs to be a live band in the room. It needs to be organic and we need to push it into genres that like aren't where you normally are. And if you really want me to work on it, like I think that's what we should do. I think that would be really interesting to me because the songs are so good and he's such a good singer, but I don't want to go the pop route with it because I don't know how to do it. It's not just like, oh, I don't like it. I don't know how to produce a record like that.
Hmm.
I just don't. And he was totally cool with it. And he was completely into it. And he put together this ridiculously good band. And we went to Mono Valley. We had 2-week-long sessions. And he had given the band the demos, I think. And we just, like with that Favez record we did, we'd play a song. What you got going on there?
Nothing.
Little Marty Pellow.
Little Marty Pellow.
Yeah. And so we just worked out the arrangement on each song. And like, I'm telling Paul Stacey what he should play on drums, and he didn't like that very much. But like, I mean, he did. It was great. It was so interactive, and everybody was so cool about it. And to be able to work on stuff like that in that kind of setting was great. Again, being in a room with a band playing and being able to say like, ooh, I think it would be cool if we did this, and have everybody actually willing to see how that goes. And obviously the band had ideas, and Marty very much heard what he wanted. And I think we made a really cool record. I mean, there's stuff that is nothing like what he would normally do. There's some ballads that are very much in his wheelhouse, but they're beautiful. They're really well done. He had some arrangers that he worked with a lot for brass and strings. And we got some of this stuff, and they're really talented. And we used some of what they did. But I just said, look, man, I think this is starting to go in the direction of where I told you I don't know what I'm doing, and it's not what I would want to do. And we had David Campbell do string and brass arrangements on most of the record. If the people here don't know who David Campbell is, among other things, he's Beck's dad, but he was David Campbell long before he was Beck's dad. He's one of the coolest string arrangers ever. He just finds ways to do stuff that is nothing like what you would expect, and it's never distracting. It just supports the song. So he did that, and a lot of that had to happen remotely because of where we were and travel restrictions and things like that. And I think it's a really great record. It's, again, it's not a motorcycle record. Like, it's not like I made him do that, but I think there's some very cool kind of almost 70s Bowie influence on a couple of the songs. And there was actually one point, and unfortunately it never got done because we just couldn't get a lyric that worked for the song. But at one point we were sort of, I think, halfway through the second week of tracking. And he said, so look, how are we doing on this group of songs? And I thought about it for a second. And I said, man, everything is in 4/4. Like, this is a man's record. There's nothing in 3. And so he and Paul Stacey, the guitar player, wrote not a waltz, but they wrote a song in 3 that night. And it's great. And the melody that he came up with is great. It's like, just like, it's really, really good. And we never got a lyric, and it never got finished.
Oh, man.
And it's such a shame because he had an idea for the lyric, but it was like, man, you can't come at that thing from that viewpoint. Like, that's not going to work. But I love the idea. And what if we made it from the other person's perspective? And we worked out some stuff. I even had somebody else try and co-write verses with him to see if we could come up with something. And we just never did. And It was so in our heads what the song was about that we couldn't just scrap that completely and make it about something else. And so it didn't get done. But yeah, which is a shame. And also, I got to say, I was only producing. He brought Phil Brown in, who I interviewed way early on in the interviews, and he tracked that record. So if you want to hear more about that record, definitely check out that interview because it was amazing. I mean, I've very seldom been able to just produce. I'm always engineering as well, and then mixing.
Right.
So to just be there as a producer, it kind of puts some pressure on you. Like, you better fucking get it right. You can't say, oh, sorry, I wasn't listening to that tape because there was something wrong with the overheads, which you should never do anyway.
Yeah.
But it was great. It was a really great challenge and so much fun to do.
Yeah. Do you want to do more of that in the future? What,
producing?
Yeah. Just producing.
Of course. Yeah. I mean, it's scary because you got to be in a room on a certain day and it's just got to work. But like, I just did a seminar for Abbey Road Institute. You want to do the horn for them?
Oh
Uh,
yeah, hold on a second. Sorry, yeah, I almost missed that thing.
Shout out.
Yeah. Wait, that already
Um,
happened?
that it just happened. I got back yesterday. I got back last
Oh,
night.
awesome.
So it's a 4-day thing and ended last night. And so Callum is the drummer in this band Projector, super cool band. And he was my assistant on the Marty Pellow stuff. I met him because he was an assistant uh, at Mono Valley.
Mono, yeah.
And it was his first, I don't know if it was the first session, but he had just gotten there when I did the Low Roar session with Mike and Ryan, the
Yeah.
5-day fucking extravaganza of just recording everything. And so it was he and him and Matt Glasby, who's now like fucking successful as hell. He's doing really, really well. But those two guys were the ones who ran that session. And so Callum was the assistant. So I had gotten in touch with Matt and Callum and just said, hey, look, I'm going to be doing this seminar. I need a band to do one song with. And who should I work with? And they gave me a couple of names. And then Matt said, but have you heard Callum's band? And so I had to listen, and it's really cool. Oh, yeah, nice.
Huh.
Apparently, thumbs up, guys. Thumbs
Is this
up.
some Mac OS thing? It's been happening everywhere. Yeah. I don't know. Mine doesn't do it.
So
Do the down one for everybody.
what does that do?
Oh, Fabs does like thunderstorms and rain and all kinds of stuff.
That's probably on FaceTime instead of this.
Ah, right.
Something. All right. So anyway, I was talking, Mark. So Callum sent me a demo of this song, and it was like in a rehearsal room. Like you could barely hear what was going on. It was really cool and really noisy, which I love. But then the chorus was this really sing-songy thing. I'm like, okay, I think I might hate the chorus. What are we going to do about that? And I didn't really say much. And then Callum said, okay, we have a new demo. It's still just on a phone in the rehearsal room, but we've got a new demo. The arrangement's a bit more together.
Mm-hmm.
And the choruses were exactly the same. And I'm thinking like, okay, this might be a problem. But I just thought that's exactly what you want to do during a seminar is work on a song where there's part of it that you're really not sure of. And I think, we had that with the Geese track. Like, it's not that I didn't like it. It's that I could not see how it was going to be cool when we finished at first. Like, how are these sections going to work? And so we set up the track. And you've got people there. So I put up more microphones than I probably normally would by a couple on the drums. And we started getting the drum sound and the kick just wasn't happening. So we swapped out the kick drum and we had a resonator kick in front and like all this stuff. Like we put a resonator in on Geese too. It's like just something I love doing now.
Yeah.
And then I had my one mono mic, like on Geese, the same thing. We had that low mic that I moved around to the hi-hat side, and then that was the hi-hat in the track.
Check out Andrew's start to finish on Puremix.
Yeah. So I had a Coles 4038 because for whatever reason, Angel Studios has a ton of Coles 4038. So, okay.
Nice.
So it's on the stand, and I move it around, and I go in the control room, and it's an EVR, which is not in great shape. There's a lot on there that just doesn't work. Like the kick drum channel where I had the microphone, the low band of the EQ didn't work. And like, that's not a good channel for that not to work. That's kind of a problem. But, and so I'm looking around and there's very little outboard gear in the room because they do mostly string sessions in there. So it's like preamp, straight to Pro Tools. They just faders on the console to monitor. Done. Nobody's touching anything. It's just all about capture. So I was like compressing the thing, and then this guy Ben, who had produced their record but is sort of kind of in the band, he went on tour playing lots of extra instruments, and he's like, oh, what's kind of cool on this thing? I like use the limiter and just limit it way too much. And he came over and we put it in, and I like crank like, oh, that's really good. And that ended up being probably 90% of the drum sound was one microphone out in front of the kit.
Nice.
And it's fucking huge. And so we tracked the song super noisy, like just blown up everywhere. And that's what made me like the chorus. Like it was fine because it was
Nice.
like this sweet thing over so much noise that it could only be like tongue in cheek in a way. There's no
Right.
way they could have meant that. And to the point where Lucy, the bass player, actually doubled the melody up an octave and she sang it really nicely. And I tuned that a lot. So it was very pop. And meanwhile, Ed is singing it like ragged as hell over his guitar playing that melody, ragged as hell. And it made it into something that was great. And I don't know why I'm even talking about this, like how we got onto it. But
Yeah. That's
anyway,
pretty awesome though. Yeah. Well, we were coming from the Stargazer thing with you producing. Um, yeah, very
I
neat.
don't know. It's
Is that
something.
will that be released? Is that a thing that people will be able to hear?
That's up to the band. The band owns
Yeah.
it. Um, yeah, so I don't know. But the cool part was, well, not as cool for the people attending the seminar because we got in like, and so when I was tracking, there's absolutely nothing on playback. There isn't a single plugin in the session. It's just use the gear to capture what you want it to be, which is what I always try and do.
Hmm.
And sometimes you need to use some plugins to do that. But in this
Hmm.
particular case, we did it with guitar pedals. I had my little cigarette amp. We put that on the vocal and just stuff like that. And so we went to mix, and I already knew it sounded really good because we were just balancing the thing and we were doing overdubs. And it was never like, well, hold on, I need to add something on the kick to be able to hear it. And so we went to mix, and I just pulled up the tracks to the same level they had already been in the session and hit play. It's like, well, I mean, I knew we had to work on the vocals, like because we hadn't balanced those and hadn't treated them at all. And the rest of the track, I basically just didn't touch.
Mm.
And I didn't use anything in my template except the stereo bus and barely put anything in on that because it was just
Awesome.
tracked with so much intent that like you weren't going to change it. It just was what it was.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that. Yeah. Yeah. Definitely love that.
And I think the Geese thing was like that too. There wasn't a whole lot of mixing in that.
Right. Yeah. Just kind of automating things and all of that, but not really shaping. Yeah.
Yeah.
I remember I probably talked to you about this before, but I did a like before the Puremix days, I did a workshop with Vance Powell, and he obviously like he tracks that way, like everything is the way it is when it goes
Yeah.
in. And to prove a point on that workshop, he brought an 8-track head and threw that on the Studer, and it was a 4-piece rock band. So, it was like kick, rest of drums, and then like you had bass, 2 guitars, and then I think like a
Yeah.
vocal track and a background vocal track or something, right? And I remember being like, it was like my first time kind of seeing something like that. I was like, well, what happens if the band doesn't like it the next day? And he's like, you tell them to go out and record it again. I was like, oh, yeah, that's
Yeah.
awesome. Yeah,
But it's not like, well, fuck them. It's
right.
like everybody gets to hear it while you're doing it. And that is what it is.
Yeah, yeah,
And if the bass isn't loud enough, maybe you do some EQ,
yeah. Nobody
you
was
know.
going to go out and record that thing again though, because it sounded ridiculously huge. It was insane.
I'm sure. I mean, I know a guy got to put up some Sly Stone tapes, and it was 16-track tape, and faders at 0 and just figure out which way it was panned, and that's the
Yeah,
record, like
right.
done.
Wow.
Because you're sharing tracks, so you have to track stuff with intent. Like you
Yeah,
can't put the chorus tambourine and the bridge background vocal on the same track at the same level.
yeah.
So you track the tambourine really, really quiet because that's what it needs to be in the chorus. So you don't even think about it. That's just what you do.
You do. Yeah,
And I love tracking that way.
yeah. It's awesome. It that whole thing completely changed how I like every session for the rest of my life, obviously. And like it also made mixing way more fun when I got there because it's like, oh, I'm not trying to like recreate the thing or whatever. It's just
Yeah.
now we're making a mix.
And it's
Yeah.
this whole thing about, if you don't commit a little bit, you're just building on sand. And like, what's the singer going to sing to? And even if you get something for them to sing to, if it turns into something else, that vocal's not going to work anymore.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Crazy. It seems I'm guessing like it's a thing that maybe it seems obvious to you, but I remember just being completely like I was like 10 years in at that point and I was like, what have I been doing?
No, me
It
too. You
was,
know, you learn this stuff along the way. And also, like, I mean, I started my career working on stuff that wasn't live band. I mean, the Michael Jackson record, we recorded live musicians,
hmm
but that was very much put together. But at the same time, it was put together with intent. So it
hmm
wasn't like, fuck it, man, the band's going to play and we're going to 4 tracks because we got to keep 4 for overdubs. It wasn't that. But each of the 12 million elements on the track were done with intent.
yeah, yeah, awesome. All right, let's keep it moving.
Must be almost done.
There's some cool things. We are at the Atmos talk.
Do we even bother? I've done seminars. What do you want to know? I did some
I know
fucking
you've done
Atmos.
seminar. Well, what's it? I mean, it's been a while since we've talked Atmos.
Okay.
Months. Yeah.
What do you want?
How's it going these days
Good.
for you? What do you? Good. Not let me out of this easy, are you?
No.
Well, in my massive amount of preparation, I came up with some questions for you.
Okay.
So, okay, let's see what this goes like. All right, no, seriously. Let's say like the last. Let's talk about like the last year. I think it's been about that long since we've talked Atmos. What are
Yeah, I
some?
mean, not really much has changed. I've got a different idea about my template. So I'm using way more objects, but I'm still using object beds. I'm getting to the point where maybe I don't need to use object beds so much because I'm working from stems.
Mhm.
And, I've had to do some stuff matching mastering, stereo mastering. But it's never that extreme, but I'm just used to it. So I still do that. But what I've got now is a 906 object bus, mix bus for each of the 4 metadata settings.
Mm,
So I'm taking up 60 objects with my mix buses.
yeah.
But what it means is I can pan, because it used to be I had an object bed, but I had like the left, center, and right were on off, then the mids were on near, and then it got a little further away as you went back. And it makes sense, but what would happen is if you were panning from the left, right to the mids, everything would change and it would get loud. And
Mm,
now I can just pan,
mm,
but I can also at any point say, well, what would that sound like if it were set to far?
mm,
Because all I got to do is change the mix bus it's going to. Now, obviously, you could do that with the metadata settings on objects as well. But at the
yeah.
moment, that's the way I'm set up. Um, Otherwise, not a lot has changed. I mean, I still love doing it. I think for
Yeah.
the thing we talked about before, where you don't have that sonic jeopardy because you're starting with stems from the approved stereo mix.
Yeah.
But you can just do stuff. It can be so creative and really get into how the arrangement worked in the stereo and what can you do with that. And like at this seminar, we were going to do an Atmos mix of the song, but there was no fucking point. Like the
Mm,
drums were basically mono, and there was a single bass, and there were only 2 guitars in the chorus, and otherwise there was one. There was no point. So I played him a bunch of ADMs, and to see people, there was a lot of conversation beforehand about, well, will this format stick around and whatever. And some of the most cynical people were like, holy fucking shit, this is amazing.
right.
And I played a couple of Hozier tracks. I played a crazy 1975 track, low roar track, just,
Mm,
some stuff that's really cool. And the difference between the stereo and the Atmos is not the sound of it. It's still the same song, but if you do it right, it can be more emotional. I think you can connect with it more because you're inside the song and you're not a third party, like
mm,
you're second party, whatever
yeah.
that means. You know what I mean? You're not in the band, but you're not just some listener who's detached
Out in front.
if you
Yeah.
do it right.
Right.
And so that's been awesome. It was great to play stuff for people who were cynical about it,
hmm
who knew enough to think lots of stuff about it.
Mm,
So, all the stuff about will it stick around and the business model and blah, 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 all of that is still very, very valid and
Mhm.
true. But the reality of being able to do a mix of something like that and have it envelop you is just fucking great.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I love it. I
Yeah.
absolutely love it. And I really hope it sticks around just so I can do it.
Yeah. Exactly. Because it's really fun to do it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. The work that you've done recreating stereo masters from, say, multi-track stuff, is this more legacy stuff?
No, no, no. I mean, I do stems from my stereo. So I
Right.
don't have to recreate it.
So you haven't done, but yeah. So I know,
I
like with your
haven't
stuff,
done
but
a
have you
lot of
done
that.
like
No, I've
catalog
done
stuff?
a little bit where there's no, there's no stereo mix to make stems from. So you're working basically from a multi-track.
Yeah.
I'm not great at matching mixes. There's some people
Hmm.
who are really good at it. And I found out during the Guitar Hero days when lots of people were doing that. It's just not something I'm good at for some reason.
Hmm.
I
Yeah.
can't mix through other people's ears. I'm not good at analyzing it and like, ooh, okay, we'll do that. Like I could analyze it verbally and tell you all kinds of stuff about a mix, but to actually recreate it is not something I'm that good at. And I
Mm.
haven't been asked to do too much of that. So in a way, it hasn't really come up.
Yeah.
But that's not my strong suit, I don't think.
Mm. Yeah. I I think it would be more fun to just start from the stereo stems. I haven't done any catalog stuff, but it doesn't sound like a good time to me.
I don't know. Some people are really like Ryan Hewitt is amazing at it. He did a lot of Guitar Hero stuff. And
Nice.
he would like research what console was used for the mix, and then he would use those plugins, and like he
Mm.
was really good at it. Um, I'm not. I mean, it would be great if I could, because there's so many things I hear in other people's mixes. Like, well, if I could do that just once, just to kind of see what my version of that would be, that'd be amazing. But I can't do it. I absolutely can't do it. I have no idea how to make it sound like other people's stuff.
There you go.
There you go.
Okay.
And
Some
if any
changes.
labels are listening, I'm really good at it.
Yeah, he's really good at it, and send him all the
I
work.
make
He's ready.
catalog.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about the tech involved. Are you using the internal renderer in Pro Tools that is new since the last time we talked about it?
I've done both. When I'm home, I still use the external only because my Dante setup is so crazy that it's more than I could do with the internal renderer. But I had done the Hozier EP, I think it was, and gone to Cornwall with my laptop and my headphones, and they're like, "Great, it's approved. We got to print ADMs and send them places and do stuff." Or there was like one tiny tweak or something I had missed, or like whatever. There was something I had to change. Just opened up the session, went into the internal render, sounded exactly the same, did the
Hmm.
tweak, printed it, done. So the
Yeah.
internal render in Pro Tools is fucking awesome. And the fact that you can go back and forth without your IO getting screwed up,
Right.
it's
Yeah.
amazing.
Yeah.
Absolutely amazing. They did such a good job. And I want to give a shout out to Chris Windsor, who is the product designer. He's like the head of things, not product, but like for different features. And he spec'd and built with the engineers the internal renderer, and he
Mm.
fucking nailed it.
Awesome.
He is so good. So Chris Windsor, two thumbs up. You get two thumbs up?
Yeah, and somebody actually told us earlier you get fireworks if you do it sideways with it. Go sideways. And mine won't do it. Hey, that's awesome.
You're welcome.
That was a rubber chicken, I think.
I think that's just a broken thing of your other thing.
Uh, all right. So we're gonna pause that thought for a second, and we're gonna go to live in a moment as soon as I find it. While everybody sees my
You
stuff,
know we can see your desktop.
I do. All right, there we go. Just ignore anything you saw. It's fine. All right. So here we are on the Hot T100 live. Although this is from when I looked it up earlier, and somebody in the chat has told us that it seems that it has gone to number one
Do a
on the
refresh, man.
Billboard. You ready? Here we
Yeah.
go, live on the air. Andrew reacts to Hot 100 top single.
Yeah, bullshit.
Oh, he set us
See?
up. He said it.
You're
This is
full
why
of
you
it.
don't trust the internet.
No.
It was a
No,
good try.
As Abraham Lincoln said, don't trust everything you read on the internet.
I remember when he said that. I was there.
Yeah. I got that quote from the internet.
That's great.
It's kind of meta. But yeah. I just want to point out that it took 3 artists to make their number one. You know.
That's right. That's
So,
right.
it's stacked in their favor.
Very true.
And
All
it's
right.
probably really good. But
I'm even doing a hard refresh right now. It's not coming up. All right. That's all right. We'll check back in next week. I'll call you and we'll do it live.
yeah.
It goes to
Awesome.
number one. Congratulations on that, though. It's amazing.
Thanks, so. It's a big deal.
Yeah. Okay. Let's see. I'm just
I also love
marking
how
some stuff.
excited he was about it being number one in Ireland. You know,
Yeah. That's
because some artists don't really, like, ooh, the States, like that's. But no, he's super, super excited. He was number one in Ireland.
That's amazing. Yeah. Okay.
Are we Q&Aing?
Yeah, let's start with an Atmos question. So here we go. Joseph Music. Do you always work from a stereo mix, and why not work the other way and start with the Atmos mix?
Because the artist has you work on the stereo mix first, and most of the time they haven't even made the final decision they're going to do Atmos. So it's just the way the workflow is now. There are more people doing the Atmos mix and having a stereo version of the Atmos mix be the stereo mix. I'm definitely not at that point. I'm not set up for it. I don't think that way, really. It would be cool, but it would be difficult, and the workflow wouldn't work at all because I've got to get the stereo done before anybody even thinks about the Atmos. So it's a logistics thing more than anything.
Do you see that changing in the future?
It'll only change in the future if the artists start thinking about Atmos first and they want it to be the main thing. A lot of artists and managers and even labels they just see it as an add-on. It's not a version of the record as far as they're concerned. The mix is the stereo mix, period.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
All right. Anything else you want to say on the Atmos thing? Has any of your perspective changed on it as you've done more?
I don't think so. I mean, I still really, really like it. And I think because my room is so small, I don't get the benefit that like I got in this other room. And it wasn't a huge room. But when I listen and I can really hear the separation between the speakers, it's great. I mean, I think I said a few times, I've spent a lot of time loving like psychoacoustic effects when I'm mixing in stereo, things that make it sound like it's outside the speakers. So to be able to just put it there instead of trying to make it sound, fuck you, reactions. So yeah, to be able to just do that, it turns out it is actually that amazing when you get it right. It's also so much easier to destroy a song.
Right.
But when you get it right, it's awesome. It's so much fun to listen to.
Awesome. Do you have any tracks you'd recommend for people to go check out? Either that you've done or not, stuff that you love,
I mean, I should know other people's stuff better, but I'm not gonna say, because I tend to not listen to too much other Atmos stuff because first of all, it's difficult, and I don't listen to music just to listen in my studio.
Right.
It's just not something that works for me to do, and there's nowhere else in my house I can listen, and I don't externalize well, so listening to it on a streaming service and headphones it just doesn't work for me. So I don't listen to enough of other people's Atmos, which is lame. I really should, but I don't listen to enough of other people's stereo mixes either.
Right.
I just don't, because I'm a dick. if going to the gym has actually made me listen to way more music than I have in decades,
Yeah.
because the stuff they play at the gym, you can't listen to that.
You
Like,
can't.
there have been
Yeah,
a
you got to
couple
bring
of days when
headphones.
I've forgotten my headphones,
Oof,
and it's just like,
the worst workout ever.
it's a little brutal. It's a little brutal, all this pop stuff at the same tempo, and, you know, all the singers are yelling at you. And
Yeah.
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 So, I mean, I don't know. I don't know what to recommend, because I can't just recommend my own stuff. I think the
Hmm.
Hozier stuff has turned out really well. Um, there's a track by Finnegan Tui, FINNEGANTUI, um, that I mixed, that I really love the Atmos version of that song. I think it worked out really, really well. It's very emotional. The low roar stuff, I haven't done enough to actually release it yet.
Mm.
I'm still, well, okay. So on the low roar front, I've actually really started digging in on the sixth record.
Amazing.
So
Yeah.
I've done all the harmonium, most of the bass, a lot of the synth stuff, a lot of modular stuff. Still hoping to get some strings. It's not definite yet, but I'd say 3 or 4 of the songs are very close to finished, which is good. It's still, sometimes I can work on it for most of a day, but like I was working on one song, and after about an hour and a half, I just fucking couldn't do it.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
Oof.
and there was one where like I was fine, was just working on it, and it was like great. And then I asked Debbie if she wanted to hear it, and so she came in to have a listen. And for some reason, listening to it that way just
Hmm.
was devastating. And so that took another 2 days to be ready to work on it. It's really weird in a way that it's so brutal, but it is.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
but I'm getting there. There's actual real progress being made, and I think it's turning out amazingly well. It's a
Cool.
lot of what I heard in my head. I haven't sent anything to Mike yet, and the two of us will have to pretend to be Ryan. And I think I posted on Instagram, because every once in a while I'll go on the Low Roar account and I'll post, like, there was a repress of one of the albums that finally showed up. And so I'll post there, and I say
Hmm.
it's me, but it's on that account so people see it. And I posted that I had done stuff. What was the point of this? Um, Oh, and I post. Someone said I posted just to say, hey, just so you know, there's real progress and blah blah blah. And I had a picture of my RCA KU3, which is sitting next to me, but I don't know that we'll get it into the shot. Um,
Wait, let me remove myself.
I gotta lift it up. So there's the KU3, my favorite
That's
mic in the world.
awesome. We
They're
only
the
saw
only
the
mics I
corner.
kept. I kept 2 KU3s and an SM7 when I sold all my gear. Those are the only microphones I still own. So I'm just putting the mic stand back here. So anyway, you can come back on, Mark, if you want.
Okay. All right.
I'm
It
not
was
doing
only the
any.
corner of it, but
Yeah, I know.
it's okay.
Look it up on the internet. It's a
Yeah.
fantastic microphone. It's a ribbon mic. It's pre 44 or concurrent with the RCA 44, but they were built to be on sound stages. So they've built this acoustic enclosure that actually makes them somewhat directional. It's just
Hmm.
the most natural mic anyway. But I just put a picture up of that and the bass and a keyboard and just said, look, work is happening, because the people like, where the fuck is this record? And in
Hmm.
a nice way, but like, where the
Yeah.
fuck is this record? So I just said, I'm making progress and I'm working on it, but it's really hard, but we're making progress. And then someone asked in the comments, a very fair question, was like, well, so what would Ryan normally do that now someone else is doing? And so I had to say about how we work on the records, which is that this is the way every record was made, is that
Hmm.
Ryan would do his stuff, and then it would, after the second record, go through Mike with him working with Ryan, and then me. And I said, and the only difference is I don't have Ryan calling me every single day to have me play him something.
Yeah.
And so I think part of what's hard about it is I have to get in the headspace of Ryan's going to call, and that pushes me to make sure that
Hmm.
it's fucking done, not just like, yeah, that stuff's cool.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's, I got him over my shoulder pestering me. the entire time, because that's what he
Yeah.
used to do. He'd call me up, tell me something good, play me something, send me something. Like, no, you can't hear this yet. It's not done. You're not going to like it. No, you have to send it. And then he would tell me exactly what it was that I knew I already had to do to finish like that one
Right.
keyboard thing. Or,
Yeah.
So yeah, but
Oh
that's
man.
so Low Roar update.
That's awesome. That's really great that you're getting to do that now, and yeah. Amazing. What else can you say about it? Let's see. I was going to say, oh yeah, so with the KU, sorry, what is it? A KU
KU3.
3. It looks like it
AEA
came out of
has a
Fallout.
KU4. So
And Dave is wondering.
I've put it up right next to it. It
Nice.
was during the Al Schmidt recording a big band seminar. You want to do the horn?
Oh yeah.
It's so ridiculous. So yeah, I had just bought them and was super excited about them. And I was talking to Al about it, and he was using some on what it was is he used them on the orchestra sessions that we did for the Josh Groban record that he recorded. And I was just blown away with them. And then I was looking for them and finally found the ones that Alan Sides had. And I went, listened to all 6 of them and picked 2 and whatever. And I'd just gotten them, and they were just in a cardboard box. And I asked Al, look, man, can I bring these and just do a little shootout? Because he had the KU4s there for some reason, even though they had the originals at the studio. And so we put them up, and the AEA KU4s are amazing. My KU3s are better. There's something in the frequency response that's just smoother. Like, no matter what I record on, it's the only microphone I'm using on this record. It doesn't matter what it is. It can be I put some trumpet and flugelhorn on.
Oh man.
That, shakers, tambourine, harmonium. The harmonium sounds amazing through this thing. It's just natural. It's like you're in the room with the instrument.
Wow. Yeah.
So I love them. But the KU4s are amazing. I mean, if I hadn't been comparing, I never would have thought there's anything wrong with the KU4s. They sound great. Really, really great. But there's something even more something to me about the 3s.
Yeah. They came in a cardboard box.
Yeah, literally. Like, give me thousands of dollars for these 2 microphones. I will give you a free cardboard box.
Thanks for coming by. Nice. Okay. So let's get into some Q&A stuff here. I got some questions on here. We got about 30 minutes, 40 minutes, something like that. However you're doing.
You're the one with the session. I'm just going to go to bed.
You're like, don't put this on me. All right. Pavlos says, I was checking a record with a composer that was a producer making all the decisions and 4 different singers. He selected the vocal takes using the worst. Really, he loved it. The singers hated it. And this goes back to, I forget the topic we were talking about, but he asked this earlier and I saved it for now. So,
yeah. That's a conversation between the singers and the composer. It's like, if you're hired to be the engineer in that particular battle, I don't think you're necessarily allowed to have an opinion unless someone asks. There's got to be something that they're responding to make them pick those takes. It's a drag for the singers, and I think they're the ones who need to have the conversation and just say they're really unhappy with the choices. But yeah, you can't get in the middle of that, I don't think, unless you happen to know everybody really well and whatever. But like, I think that the first thing to do would be to try to figure out, well, why is he picking those? I'm saying I don't know, why are they picking those takes? There's got to be a reason. It can't be like, if everybody else feels as though those are the worst takes for whatever reason, what is it that he's responding to? Maybe it's that it's not supposed to be what you would consider a good vocal performance. It's supposed to be super vibey, and for some reason what everyone else thinks is bad is what's giving him a vibe. So maybe you can find a different way to do that with other takes. You can like do some fucked up delay, or I don't know what,
Mm-hmm.
but somehow turn them into something that's interesting and not what you would expect, and just see if you can find a way to make those work. But the conversation's got to be you and the thing.
Yeah. I always love when you say stuff like that because it literally just comes down to make it work.
Yeah, and if you're going to stick with those takes, you got to make it work. But if you can
Yeah.
figure out a way to get the takes that everybody else wants to work for the person whose decision it actually is, well, that's a win-win-win. Like, that's great.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Awesome. Okay, so along the same line, Smokin' Fudo says, what should I say to a band that asked me? I really like the way the mix sounds in the car. It's perfect. However, I noticed that the previous mix sounded better on my phone.
Well, I mean, it's got to sound better everywhere. So that means there's still something about the mix that's not right. Like, neither of them are right, unless the car is crazy sounding. I think the best thing to do would be to go listen in the car and listen off their phone.
Mm.
And have them say, like, in the moment, like, oh man, you hear that? And hopefully they'll point out something in particular that you can listen for and go, okay, all right, I kind of understand what it is that they're hearing here. Go in the car. Okay, I get that they think this is better there, but it could just be that there's no low end on the phone and there's so much low end in the car, and that's what they love. So it's nothing to do with the mix at all. It's just the playback. In which case, I think you actually should trust the phone more than the car if it's a recent phone. But at that point, really, you should get onto some speakers that they know, if there are any. Who knows? A lot of people don't own speakers anymore. So, yeah, but if it isn't better everywhere, then there's still something not happening.
Mm-hmm.
Unless you find out it's better in that place for this person for the reason that you can't hear below 100 hertz on the phone.
Mm-hmm. Awesome. Sort of in that vein, mastering question. Danny just had a comment. He had to leave, but he asked to ask this later. He wanted to hear more about why the mastering changed the emotional response on the record.
I don't know. I don't know. It just, there's something fucked it up. And it was basically a flat transfer, which means all that happened is it went from 4824 to 4416. Like, that was it. It was basically a sample rate conversion. And I don't know. And there was something about it, and it doesn't matter who it was, but, you know, I talked to them about it and said, look, are you doing anything sonically? And by the second pass, like, no, I'm just doing the conversion.
Wow.
But it wasn't happening. And I did just exporting from Pro Tools, which the Tweakhead sample rate conversion in Pro Tools is great. And I've had occasion to do shootouts of sample rate converters. It was a while ago, but what a fucking nightmare that is. And the Pro Tools one is great, and it's my favorite. So I just did that, and I sent those files to Shara and said, check them out. Because I don't know that I'm going to emotionally respond to as minute a detail as she would. So it was important that she say, yes, this is better. And she did. She said, no, this feels exactly the same. So I don't know what was going on. I have no idea. But that, in that particular case, that's what we ended up doing. I just sample rate converted it, and then we just did metadata, and it got put out.
Yeah. Awesome. Question I'll answer for Joe. Where can I find a list of tracks, albums that you've worked on? We've been going through, as I was preparing for this specific episode 7, that was highly prepared for. I was going through myself, Wikipedia and AllMusic to try and cobble something
was
together.
Really accurate up to a point, but whoever was putting that stuff in is just giving up because
it's your manager.
It just stopped.
Yeah.
And I have no idea who was doing it. So, that I'd say those two places are good. and also my manager's page. It's not complete, but I think you can download a PDF or something that's relatively complete as well. So that's McDonough Management. So it's McDMCDMAN.com. And he's got a page for each of his artists with credits. You're allowed to shout out your manager. Come on.
Yeah, exactly. I'm looking on Puremix right now because I think that we have a playlist for you there as well, but it's not a complete listing of everything that you've done.
No, it's just some stuff.
There are links to Andrew's Facebook, Twitter, and All Music on his mentor page on the site, and there's a show reel there as well.
I barely have Facebook. Here's something. So I got off Facebook right at the beginning of lockdown. Just like it yeah. For all the reasons you would get off Facebook.
The Facebook link is dead, actually. So there you go.
Yeah, good. So I finally got back on about a year ago, probably, because I play board games with this group of people every Thursday, and they sort of organize it with a Facebook group. Right. And so I never knew what the fuck was going on. Like, all right. So first I joined under a different name, and they actually called me out on it. They're like, hey, this is not your real name. You have to verify your name. Like, oh, God damn it. And then there was like one thing I wanted to post. Like, okay, fine. So I just put my name. But I had like 12 friends. It was just the people in the board games group. And I think that was it. Like, nobody else. And then a few weeks ago, because I'm doing this event at the Hive, which is a library in Worcester. You can go honking if you want, because it's an event that's not. Go on. We have fun.
I'm so excited when I get to do it.
So anyway, so it's this thing where I'm just going to go talk. I'm going to like tell some of these stories, which is insane to me that anyone would come. And I thought, well, I better promote it. Yeah, there it is. An evening with Andrew Scheps. With that's a picture of me. Yeah.
Perfect.
So I thought, well, people need to know about this. So I decided, all right, I'm going to accept every single friend request that happens. So I went from 12 to almost 5,000 in like 7 days, which was fucked up to begin with. But it's all scams. It's
really?
People tagging me in photos about, oh, yes, I'm selling my, there's a garage sale of some stuff. And you know it's a scam. Like, well, send the cash and then you can come pick it up and they give you some bullshit address or like just endless.
So I shouldn't click on the link
yeah.
you sent me to your OnlyFans.
No.
Then, all right.
No. And, you know, porn bullshit and, oh, we'll get you likes. And it's ridiculous. It's so much worse than it used to be. Or maybe it was always this bad and I just forgot. So as soon as this thing happens at the Hive, I'm going to like just unfriend everybody. So I apologize in advance for anybody who's actually trying to, you know, like be friends. But I'm probably not going to post anything either.
Right.
Because the experience has been bad the last few weeks.
Yeah. Yeah. You don't want to accept the friend request from the girls with the scantily clad clothes and the.
I mean, you know, look, I'm plowing through 700 a day to like just get the numbers up. I'm, you know, I thought, whatever, just accept them all. And then that's a huge mistake.
Yeah.
But I can't weed through it now. Like, I don't know.
Not through 5,000 people. That's toast.
No. Yeah. So I'll probably come off again and then create another one with a different email address. Or something.
Just spell it like you spell your microphone company. And it'll be fine.
Yeah. My microphone company. And my club soda company as well.
Yes. That's right. Okay.
Canada Dry, right? That's the one.
Yeah.
Oh, no.
Canada Dry is the one. Yeah. Schweppes. All right. Just a comment from Dustin Null. Just finished Death Stranding and love the Low Roar songs in it.
Awesome. Thank you very much. That was amazing. I mean, we talked about that where Hideo Kojima, the designer and writer and creator and all that, was in a record store and heard some Low Roar playing and loved it and listened to it constantly while he was doing the game. And then they licensed a ton of songs.
Yeah.
And that doubled our listenership yeah, that was what made Ryan not have to work
It's so
anymore.
awesome.
It was the money
Yeah.
I could give him from the label.
Yeah.
So yeah, amazing.
Yeah. And we talked about, like, I'm also a gamer, and that is one of the coolest video game moments ever when you come over and the song starts playing, the very first one. It's so good. Uh, okay. This one from DMK75 says, I'm working with the local singer, but she can't harmonize on her recordings. Would you artificially create some harmonies or just leave the songs be?
I think you should try creating them, and if it makes it better, then do it. There was an EP I mixed for this Norwegian band Ninth, which
Hmm.
I don't. Is it
We
out
never
on
talked about that.
services? No. Let me see if it even shows up. It's pretty cool, but I don't know if this would exist anymore because I don't know if they put out more stuff. Probably not. It's a shame. It was a really cool EP. It was only 4 songs, I think, maybe 6. It's not going to be on here. But there was a song where it's one of those things like you're pushing up the tracks and like, well, wait, where's this? And the song felt like it should have a harmonized vocal all the way through.
Hmm.
And there was none. And like even in the verses, it was just so obvious to me in my head. And so, I mean, and this was a while ago, but Melodyne existed. And so I made a harmony and sent it to the band. And like, oh, this is fucking great. But hey, in this one spot, could you make it change from the E to the G halfway through that chord? Like, and they heard what I heard once they heard it. Like,
Hmm.
oh yeah, this is awesome. And so it depends how exposed it's going to be, and it depends how you use it. One thing I would say when you're making it, like I just had to do, it doesn't matter. Well, we talked about Killing Bees and that album that's coming out now. And there was a song where when we did it, there each line of the verses would end on the major third. And it sounded really happy,
Hmm.
and it's fucking aggressive music. And he's screaming, basically. But and so I got an email 2 days ago saying, look, man, we were just listening to this song and the vocal just sounds flat. It's not right. And so I went back today and tuned it to where it should have gone in the first place. And it's like, okay, it doesn't matter that it's going to the major third. It's still badass and the riff is great and it's all fine. But what I realized was the reason we didn't do it the first time was also because it started sounding Mickey Mouse. We're only going up a half step in a couple of places, but it just sounded fucking wrong. And so I spent more time with the formant than I did with the pitch. So if you're
Hmm.
going to make these vocals, mess with the formant. If you're harmonizing up higher, bring the formant down a little bit till it sounds like them.
Right.
If it sounds like her, then it will work. And
Hmm.
also, I would say that maybe Melodyne isn't the one to use because for that one, if you want to change the timing at all, you're going to be doing it all manually. There's no like just mess up the timing. Whereas Vocaline is really cool for that because it can also create doubles and things like that and do the harmony. So you can make the performance a little looser, which will make it more natural. But absolutely mess with the formant while you're doing it, and I think you'll get a much more natural sounding thing.
Yeah. Awesome. Very good. I'm coming through for more questions here, but I'm going to ask you another while I'm doing that. Just a comment, but you should know.
Uh-oh.
Bone. What were some of your best work?
In some ways that feels passive aggressive, but I'm kidding. But I agree. I agree 100%.
Yeah.
I think that the second Low Roar album is almost definitely the most complete and best sounding record I've ever made. The pressing that just came out, which I can show you actually. They fucked up some of it, which really pisses me off. Oh, I took it downstairs. But I reversed the artwork. So it's a black background with the same line. It's hard to see because of the reflection of Mark.
Let me get out of
But it's that on white vinyl, but I had to check it. And so I had to listen to the record all the way through which I don't get to do very often,
Mm.
and it's also very difficult on the low roar stuff to do it. But man, it sounds fucking great. If
Yeah.
anybody had done that record, it would be like, that is fucking great. And the sequencing on it, the spacing between the songs, it's just fucking great.
Well, Recovering Collecting wants you to know about the fireworks thing, which you did.
Let's do it again.
Great. Beautiful.
You're
Oh my gosh. We're going to use that on the Matt Ross Bang thing.
nice.
Okay. There.
By the way, I just want to say I really appreciate someone saying that, because also the
Yeah.
more people who have heard of low roar, the better.
Mhm.
So many people have not. No
Yeah.
fucking clue.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. I don't know how you would want to handle this one, but I feel like I should pass it along publicly. And then Ecamm crashed. No, it's back. There we go. Okay.
That's a hard one to know what to say about it. There have been a couple of people who've offered to do visuals and things. Ryan was always really particular about that, and he would love stuff. Like for the last record, he sent me a link and he said, look, start this song 5 seconds into this video and watch it.
Mm.
And it was someone who had done Lego animation. And it was as though they had done it to the song. It was fucking crazy how well it worked. So then he got in touch with the guy and he actually did one specifically for another song. But it's hard to know what we can use and what we can't, and I wouldn't know until I see it. Mm-hmm. So it's really difficult. I think like we would love to get people to do it because it's amazing, but there's no guarantee it would be used. So there are plans to have songs come out as singles, and we want to get exposure, so we'll have to have some visuals for them. There are a couple people that Ryan had worked with before we'll talk to. So it's fantastic and it would be great, but I cannot promise a single thing about it. So what I would say is, when the album comes out, if you hear something and you've got an idea like, oh, we have to, like, you have an idea in your head about what would be absolutely amazing, then if you do it, you can get in touch through the Low Roar website, has a contact email, and that will eventually come back to me. And then the other thing is that the family is very involved in all this. So we have some very specific things, like you are not allowed to use any of the music if you're licensing it for a film with anything that has drug use or violence or anything like that, and blah, 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 blah. But it would just be a creative call by myself and the family, and it's impossible to say what would be okay and what wouldn't. So, yeah.
Cool.
I don't have a good answer for that, but I love that it inspires people. Like there was somebody who designed, I don't know what the hell the game was. Someone designed a level. It was like you can open source the game and design a level. They designed a level as a video to the song I'm Leaving. And at first we're like, well, okay, if you're going to monetize that, you have to give us money and whatever. And we watched it and everybody just said, that's fucking awesome. And like, go ahead, just do it. Because like Low Roar will get paid for YouTube streams of Low Roar music. And just like, that's not something to license. Just put it out there because just did it for fun. And he loves the song. And, there was no sense of like, oh, well, they're going to submit that to a festival. And, like we deal with licensing requests constantly. Yeah. But for people who want to make visual content for the songs, that's a different thing, and it just has to go through a process. And none of us know what that process is. We don't know.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. Awesome. I thought I'd post it because he shot a shot and his username wasn't Will Leak Your Record 4949 or something.
Yeah. So, there's no way I'll be sending music to anybody beforehand.
Yeah.
But we don't need the stuff beforehand. So that's fine.
Awesome. Okay. Finding a new one here. This is funny. I mean, the answer is just yes, I think. But
Yeah, it's all the stuff I haven't said.
yeah, all the stuff you haven't said.
Yeah,
Right.
I mean, there have been a
Yes,
few
I'm sure.
projects where I've had to sign an NDA,
Hmm.
you know.
Yeah.
But also, it's like there's so much more I could say on this. Like one of the things I knew before we even started episode one was I wasn't going to say anything negative about anybody,
Mm.
and I don't think I
Yeah.
have. Well,
Yeah.
I've said negative stuff about you,
You
but
have.
that's different because
Yeah.
you're right here and it's to your face, and I know you'll recover. Therapy will work wonders.
Let's talk a little bit about advice. First of all, advice to the up and coming crowd who really wants to get into this world. And second, advice to guys like me who are already in it, have experience, but
Your run up.
really want to
I'm letting it play.
excel and take it up a notch.
Other than don't be a dick, it's hard to be specific about it.
No, I think that don't be a dick is overall good advice.
Yes,
in
and don't be a
every-
dick, Mark. See?
Awesome. Okay. Next one. Here we go. Pavlov, did you get a chance to check out Rick Rubin's new book?
No.
Well, sorry, Rick.
No, I've seen, I mean, he's all over social media.
Yeah.
But I feel like, I lived that for 12 or 15 years or something like that. And
Mhm.
the concepts, I feel like, I am not Rick Rubin at all. But I think like conceptually, it's kind of the same type of thing is that you've got to be led by the music and what he's got that nobody else really has is the resources to do that with every aspect of a record. If it takes longer, it takes longer.
Yeah.
Period.
Hmm.
And so to be able, it's all the concepts that a lot of people will say, but he can actually follow them through all the way to the end. So I think it's great to give people a way to think about it and to get out of always trying to think practically and think creatively and throw out all the baggage that won't help you make a good record.
Yeah.
So I think that, all of his philosophy about this stuff, I agree with completely. And, I think I'd like to think that I had a lot of that philosophy to begin with, and to have it reinforced is fantastic. And to watch it be able to be brought to fruition, because I have concepts about stuff I would love to do and how to treat things. And you just don't have the budget and the time. So you don't get to. You got to rush things sometimes. But no, but I haven't read the book. I'm sure it's great. But I haven't read it.
Awesome. Okay, so we kind of talked about this. All right, here. We'll put it up there.
There you go. That's exactly what we talked about for Rival Sons, and I am glad that John Paterno agrees with me, or that I agree with John Paterno, because he's the
right.
Yeah, only if there's an audible problem. Don't go looking for stuff. Don't ever go looking for stuff. Go looking for what's causing a problem, but don't just I should check that out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mix with your speakers on. It's general. Yeah.
That's a good rule. Or your headphones.
All right. Or your headphones. Yeah. Okay. Here we go from Bearcan again. You can't hear the distorted bass sound in mono, which is a great part of the song. Oh, interesting. Yeah. That's a great moment.
I'm trying to think I wonder which distorted bass, because that one doesn't have the out of phase bass so much. Please Don't Stop Chapter 1 has some crazy out of phase bouncing bass.
Yeah.
I've never listened to these songs in mono.
There's a little bit of that, and I'll keep coming.
Anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, again, it's trying to push stuff outside the speakers. And I love doing it on bass. I think that's awesome to have completely decorrelated bass.
Yeah.
And so far, we've never not been able to cut vinyl, which is where you should have the most problems.
Mm-hmm.
We've never had a problem with it. So that's interesting. I've never noticed that was out of phase. But sure.
Yeah.
Or maybe I did it and I've just completely forgotten. I'd have to open up the session and see what has made it that way. But yeah.
Cool.
So I'm going to say, yes, it was intentional, but maybe it was Mike who did it, and I just never fixed it. Because on its own, it would give you a headache. But if it's mixed in with the track and there's other stuff that isn't out of phase, it probably just sounds fucking cool.
Yeah. It does sound cool. I know what he's talking about. Pretty sweet. This is from earlier. Recovering Collecting says that his Facebook message was not a scam.
Oh, fantastic.
Oh, fantastic.
And if you live anywhere near Worcester, come to this thing. It's June 15th, and it should be fun. And I need to make sure there's more than like 6 people there.
There we go.
So share that thing.
Thank you, 6 of 1, for saying this. That's very nice.
We're running out of stuff to talk about, though.
Yeah,
I
and
mean,
your
we could start with your career next. You know,
that would be like a half an episode, not even a half an episode. And then I talked to Andrew on Awesome People Talk to Andrew. Okay. Okay. Always good question. I'll throw this one up.
To just do it. Yeah, I mean, the only
Sorry,
way.
I should repeat for the podcast.
Yeah. So the question is, if you're an up and coming mix engineer, how would you go about promoting your work and getting started in studios or even freelance? And like studios, you just show up and apply and say, hey, is there anything I can do?
Mm-hmm.
And if they're not going to call the cops on you, you just keep showing up. And one day there's going to be oh, you know what? Actually, we got to move all these heavy boxes from one place to another. And you say, awesome. I can't wait to do that. Let's do it right now. And that'll be someone, when they need somebody in the studio, they'll say, you know what? That person was really into it. And we liked hanging out with them. They weren't a dick. And they seem to work hard, and they'll give you a call. Like I was relentless with John Barnes every day, left a message for him every day. If you know you're really bugging him, then you got to stop. Because, you know, when you're getting into restraining order territory, it's a problem. Other than that, you just have to mix stuff. You need to have material to play for people. So what that means is you need to go find people who need stuff mixed and find beginning artists. I mean, I say this all the time. Find people who are in the same stage of their careers as musicians as you are as an engineer. And all you need to do is walk up to them and say, hey, let's make a record. I think your band's great. And they'll go, what? Awesome. And you'll say, yeah, I got a laptop and a couple of microphones. Do you have anything? Like, yeah, we got a couple of microphones. Sure, let's go do this. Where are we going to do it? I don't know. Does your living room sound good? Yeah. Like, because everyone will be very excited to be doing it. And then you get to practice, and hopefully you come out the other side with stuff you can play people. That's the only way to promote yourself as a mixer, is to have mixes.
Yeah. Yeah. I believe it was you too that just, you know, your philosophy was just like, just go work, right? Like, just go make records or whatever. Yeah, you can.
The only way to learn to make records is to make records.
And one of the things I believe that you said was like work with people that are kind of at your level if you're starting out, find bands that are starting out. And
you mean like I just said that, like just now?
Look, I'm reading questions over here.
Answer
this, Andrew.
Rewind the video a little bit. I just said exactly that, motherfucker.
Awesome. I'm paying attention, I promise.
No, you're not.
So let's talk about Low Roar.
Yeah.
I'll see myself out.
Yes, absolutely. Well, show's over.
This is turning into an episode of Space Ghost.
What are you doing?
You've been demoted.
On that side.
I messed up, so you've been demoted. All right, hold on.
Yeah, you can't be looking off the screen. You got to be looking at me.
Nope, this isn't happy now.
You don't know how to run this software at all, do you?
No. There, everything's fixed. Are the settings on the Omnichannel 2 setting different depending on what compressor type you choose?
Well, the answer is no, because you have full control over the attack and release. And so the response obviously is very different because of how the compression algorithm responds to stuff that's over the threshold. Even given the attack and release, they just sound different. They've got different curves to them and all that kind of thing. But the whole point was to be able to switch models and not have everything change,
Mm.
so that you could really decide, like, well, with this type of compression, which model of compressor do I want? And I mean by type, like how, excuse me, how aggressive and how fast or how slow. Set that up where you like it on one compressor, and then say, well, yeah, but what would that be like with a FET instead of a VCA? And you would just hear the character of the compression, but the settings would stay the same. That's the idea of it. The auto makeup gain thing is very, very difficult because those different models are incredibly different on transient material versus steady state. They're all different from each other and from themselves.
Mm.
So we had to really kind of pick an average level. So switching models is not as accurate as it could be in terms of gain matching, but it's because that's impossible. It depends on the source material. But yeah, if you set the attack and release to be really fast and really slow, it will be for those different models. The other thing is, on the ratio, all the way up is, it has a little infinity on it. So on the FET one, that's like all buttons in on 1176 kind of thing. It goes into a nonlinear mode. VCA compressors, like especially the SSL compressor, actually has infinity, which basically makes it a hardcore limiter. So each model does different things when you crank the ratio all the way up. Because I just tried to find some, like, what's the crazy version of this? And so they all do something different there. But in the normal range of ratios, attack, release, threshold, you should be able to just switch models and have the same compression idea with the different models.
What about the ratios? Just kidding. Next question. Andrew was my professor at UCLA, and it brings me so much joy to see that he still gives as much a shit as he ever did about education. Everyone wins here. Love you guys.
Awesome. That's great. Thanks, Evan.
Nice.
Excellent.
Awesome.
And I love that someone who took that class is still involved enough to be watching, because I mean, it's got to be at least 10 years ago.
Yeah, that's awesome. All right. I'm looking for my next one. I don't remember what episode we talked about Motorcycle on. I want to say 5.
Yeah, we talked a lot about Motorcycle. I fucking love Motorcycle.
Yeah.
They're great. I've been able to mix a lot of records with them, co-produced one at Mono Valley, which was very stressful, but really good. Yeah. But we did talk about them quite a bit, I'm sure.
Yeah, we definitely did.
I would imagine that might be episode 3.
Really?
But I'm guessing. Yeah.
I thought it was more recent for some reason.
Well, it could have been 5 or 6, because I didn't start working with them until 2000 something or other.
Yeah.
Yeah,
it's
so
definitely
probably
before 7. It's before
What's that?
7. It's definitely before episode 7.
Definitely before 7 and after 0. So
yeah, right. All right, Sean K asks, what's the most successful record you've worked on that took the least amount of mixing time? Or mixing and time?
I have no idea, because it's like a sliding scale on 2 things.
Mm-hmm.
Well, if you get rid of the time, I'd say the Adele record, because those mixes are scarily simple. It's just balance. Every time I did stuff, it started sounding like a record, which a lot of that record does. All the stuff like that I didn't do basically is much more produced than the stuff that I did mix, which is the Rick Rubin, very much live band. But those mixes are ridiculously simple. It doesn't mean they didn't take a lot of time, because Rick's very picky, and then, but never any feedback from Adele herself. I sent the mixes and they're on the record. So that's good.
Yeah.
So there were a few that took a second to kind of figure out the space they were going to live in, but there's a spring reverb that I used on some of the mixes. There's one of those mixes that had 5 EQs on it, and that's it. There was almost nothing on the mix bus. Like, those were really, really simple, but they weren't fast because they're so simple that it took a long time to get the balance just right.
Yeah.
So if I were Al Schmidt, those would have been mixed in like 10 minutes, because that's his style of mixing was that, and his balance was insane and so fast. But it took me much longer for that, and that's got to be the most successful record I've ever worked on, I suppose. And royalties would have been nice. I'm doing okay. I'm doing fine.
Okay. You're fine.
But that would have been good.
Yeah. You seem like you don't worry too much about how long a mix takes.
I don't care. No, it's why the only questions are, when can I get the files and when do you need it? And then they take as long as they take. Yeah. I mean, it used to be very much more about time because I was on the console.
Right.
So I had to get it off the console to mix the next thing. But now, yeah, I don't know. And I don't know. Like when we talked about My Brightest Diamond, that one song on the record I guess it took about an hour and a half, maybe 2 hours, because every time I came back to it, there was nothing I was going to change. So it was done.
Yeah.
So
I love that.
And other stuff takes me forever.
Yeah. But you're fine with it, it seems.
Yeah. I mean, the worst thing in the world for me would be a time tracking app that would tell me how much time I spent on each session. Like that would be so depressing, I'm sure.
You know that there's one of those in the works? Yeah.
There's some that already exist.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, yeah, there's the Hoffa one. I have that.
Yeah.
I should probably get that out of my template. I have it even like on a soft key so I can like call it up, and I never look at it until the end because I'm just curious.
Is that the
and
one
then
that
every time I
killed
do,
Bounce Factory?
Yes.
When we were testing?
No, that was a screen recording thing. Yeah. That was Rescue Time, which was like a Tim Ferriss 4-hour work week thing. Yeah. Look, if you had the line, "These pretzels are making me thirsty," which word or words would you accent and why?
I would have to work on it quite a bit. These pretzels are making me thirsty. These pretzels are making me thirsty. It wouldn't be making.
Give me a Walken.
Pretzels
Christopher
are
Walken.
making me thirsty. I think thirsty, you got to land on thirsty. Now, does everyone watching know the origin of this line?
I don't.
It's a Seinfeld episode. We'll just leave it. You got to watch it. It's
Nice.
great. It's great.
Awesome. Okay, good question. This is very nice. Dave Westner, I just want to thank you guys for explaining what imposter syndrome is. It was such a relief to learn that I was not the only person in the world who freaked out every time I sent a mix out.
No, you're one of many, many, many. And then there's some who don't even know what the hell you're talking about. Like Jimmy Douglas, I seem to remember during the interview, was like, "What do you mean?"
Yeah.
Go fucking hell. But yeah,
right,
a lot of people do, and it's obviously not just in this industry. It can't be that this industry attracts people with imposter syndrome. So, keep that in mind for humanity as a whole. That, I think our industry might be a little worse at it, like it exacerbates it because everything is so subjective. But, people worry about themselves and what they do and what people think about it. Way more than they should, especially me. What happens when you just raise your hand?
I don't think anything. Hey.
For the
I feel like that's directed more at me than.
Just gave me the finger.
Yeah.
That's so mean.
Next question. What recent albums impressed you?
Almost anything that Dan Carey has done. He's an English producer, does super cool records. Some of these are a few years old because, again, I don't get to listen to a huge amount of music except in the gym, and things are sort of on random. But I've been listening through different bands' catalogs, so it's not necessarily new. But like I started listening through the King Gizzard and the Wizard Lizard catalog, which is like 9,000 records. And it's amazing how much that band has changed. Like the new records are super cool, like 70s R&B sounding things. And the first couple records are just fucking noise. Like,
that is the most hipster thing I've ever heard anyone say. What is the name of this band?
It's King Gizzard and the Wizard Lizard.
Okay,
and as far as I know, they've made the records by themselves the whole time. I could be wrong, but I think they have. And they're very prolific. But that's not necessarily new.
How did you hear about this band? Is this like
Um, they were pretty buzzy a little while ago.
Cool.
Yeah,
They've got a record. They've wow. They make a lot of records.
yeah,
Wow.
yeah.
Huh.
And if you
Okay.
just dip in and out, you might think that, oh, there must be more than one band called that, but that would be insane. So,
All right.
um, so
I'm
they
gonna
were pretty
link.
impressive. Well, okay, it doesn't have to be new stuff because I've been listening through catalogs. So different people, like I realized I haven't even heard every PJ Harvey record. So I
Hmm.
listened to every fucking PJ Harvey record, and holy shit, she's amazing.
Nice.
She's so amazing. It's both the sounds of the records, which obviously she works with great producers and things, and it's very easy, especially with a female artist, to say like, "Oh, well, Flood really gets some great drum sounds." But if you listen, she's done records with different producers, and they are all badass and have the same aesthetic because it's her. And she's an amazing guitar player. And there's also, if you find live footage of her, she's singing and doing different patterns with each hand with a shaker and a tambourine. Totally different patterns and grooving like crazy.
Wow.
And she's an amazing guitar player, amazing writer. Yeah. So she's impressed the hell out of me. Alan Johannes always impresses me in his last album, Hum. We've talked about that. I
Hmm.
love that record. Um, I don't know. I don't know what else. I've heard stuff when it goes on random stuff in the gym. Like there are a bunch of if there's a record label, well, there's one called Stickman, which is a German label, and then there is a Norwegian label called Rune Gramophone. And Rune Gramophone is more sort of experimental, getting into experimental jazz stuff, and Stickman
Hmm.
is more just like cool proggy rock stuff. And those two labels have put out motorcycle records in the past, which is how I discovered the labels.
Yeah.
Both of those have some fucking great bands. Great
Nice.
bands. So, yeah.
You see
Kind
yourself
of like,
reaching out to do some records with stuff like that?
you know what was really cool is that there was a band called Elder that I heard because they were on Stickman. And I thought, man, these guys are really cool. And they actually got in touch with me about doing a record, but it didn't happen for lots of reasons. But
Yeah.
that was cool. And I think it's because they heard the motorcycle records I'd done.
Nice. Yeah. The label mates.
So I was looking over at Squid, making sure he's not doing anything he shouldn't.
Everybody's letting me know I got to get into King Giz.
Yeah. Yeah,
They
exactly.
released. That's
They
great.
probably have.
That's awesome. Okay. Why does an object pan sound different than a 714 bed pan?
Because the object is in real time deciding how much should come out of every speaker. And these 714 skips speakers that aren't in a 714
Mm.
setup. That's why my buses are 906, because that's the biggest speaker setup that Atmos really does before you get into array mode, which is you define how many speakers you have and where they are. So it's because it skips speakers. And it's even worse if you've got some of those channels set to different metadata settings in headphones. They'll sound wildly different. But that's why. The
Hmm.
objects go exactly where you place them. When you're in an object bed, it only goes with the speakers you've got, and it creates phantom images using more than one source everywhere else.
There you go. Perfect.
There you go.
Elder's really cool. Elder loves motorcycle. He
Yeah,
loves
they're
both.
both great. There's an Italian band on Stickman too that I can't remember the name of, and they've got a live video thing where they're just playing in a cave. But that's not the point. Is that they're really good too. There's a Norwegian band called Kanan, Kaanan, I think, that's also got some amazing shit on it.
Mm.
There's that's got the band has some amazing shit on it. They have some amazing records. There's another band that Bent from Motorcycle plays bass in, but he just plays bass in it. Like it's not his songs. And I can't remember the name of them right now. It might come to me, but I can't remember
Hmm.
right.
Okay. Old home recording. has been persistent. He would like to know, does summing make sense in digital? So thoughts on that?
I'm not quite sure I understand the question. I mean, you have to sum. So
Yeah.
if your
Um,
question is, should you sum analog or digital? The answer is you need to just listen and decide.
mhm.
When I was transitioning from the consoles into the box,
Sorry,
I
move that up.
was frightened and did a lot of tests on a lot of different things. And one of them was summing. And so I aligned my console to within a tenth of a dB. And I had some tracks. I summed them in the box. I summed them through the console. And I will tell you that if you do not push a Neve console, it sounds exactly like the Pro
Mm.
Tools mixer because I could flip the phase and nothing came out of the speakers. Absolutely nothing. And I
Wow.
put an analyzer on it to make sure that it wasn't like lots and lots of low end, like nothing. As soon as you start to push the Neve, they sound totally different. So if you're going to use analog summing, then you want to be getting the benefit of it, which is harmonic distortion, some sort of frequency response. If you're doing it passive, you've got mic pre's that sound like something when you go back
Mm.
in line level. But if you're going to do it conservatively, I'd say don't bother. And
Mhm.
if you're looking for like transparent summing, then definitely don't bother. Just use the summing in the box. It stays floating point. You're not coming through a bunch of D to A's. Like there are a lot of technical reasons not to do it unless you're getting some benefit that it to your ears outweighs it.
Mm. Awesome. Um, yeah, there's a portion of the Joe Ciccarelli mixing. I want to say it's Alanis Morissette on uh, at Sun Studio A, or sorry, Sound Sunset
Sunset.
Sound Studio A, and he's mixing on their custom console in there, and he does a whole chapter on pushing the console, so you can kind of hear the effects of like this is how I'm finding the sweet spot of that, and that would be like what you would be searching for, right? Is like how
Yeah.
people used to push consoles like that.
Yeah. And
So
if you do it really conservatively, you're probably not getting any of the benefit. I mean, I don't know if this is true at all, but supposedly the way Glyn Johns would get an acoustic guitar sound is he'd use a Neve preamp and he would keep turning up the mic pre till it was distorted. Then he would back it off one click.
hmm,
Because then he knew he's getting a lot out of it, but it's not actually like nasty distortion.
till they hit
That's
the
not best
chorus,
practice, is it? But
right?
that's what you do. You use the gear because it sounds like something. And like when I tracked that band on Thursday, that's the point. Like use the stuff to get out of it what it does. Not that you can't even recreate that digitally, but they're different. They just are different. There's no which is better and blah blah blah.
Yeah, awesome. I think we're getting down to it, guys. Last call for questions. Um, you can answer this. So in the last question, you said
906.
906. Yep.
Yep. And I have
Cool.
four
And
of them for each headphone metadata thing, so I don't need to switch stuff.
yeah, you can just audition. Pretty easy.
Yeah.
Very cool. Uh, and that would specifically be in headphones, obviously, right?
Yeah, because the metadata makes no difference in
In
speakers.
speaker. Yeah. Awesome. Right, because it's going. Okay, I see what you're saying. So it's going to different objects in your
Yeah.
renderer. Yeah.
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 I've got 15 objects set at each of the distances off, near, mid, far. And there is a 906 bus that feeds those objects.
Yeah. Awesome. Okay. Would you say that playing a mixing console is a dying art, having several guys make cues whilst printing a mix?
Um, yeah, I mean, this is one of those things where people are really nostalgic for it because it seems like it's really fun and creative, but there are so many mixes where you'd be printing and you'd have to stop because someone turned the send up too much.
Hmm.
Or it's not like every mix pass was like happy accidents and like woohoo. So it's cool because there was a bit more chaos, like that can be good to do stuff that you wouldn't do when you have perfect control over it because you're not going to be as bold necessarily because physically your finger moves a little bit. But it can also just fuck stuff up.
Mm-hmm.
And there were a lot of records that were mixed in sections, like all the
Mm.
Yes records were mixed in sections. You mix the choruses, then you mix the verses, and then you cut them together. Like that's not fun. So since you can automate, you automate. So I'd say in certain situations it would be really cool to do it. If you're doing a dub reggae project, like fuck yeah, that's how that was done. And so all of a sudden there's way too much spring reverb, but that's what kind of makes that record. But just to say in general that that would be a good thing, it's not. I think
Mhm.
a very high percentage of the mix situations, you want more control than you're going to get out of that. But then the ones where that would be good, that's fantastic. But you can do it just by automating live and don't look and make sure you got a hardware controller. But be writing the automation and do a couple of things at a time and don't go back and edit. Just keep doing it until you like it.
Yeah. That makes it fun. Okay, I think we're down to the end of it.
All right.
With this last question.
Oh no.
From Sean K. Is there ever a reason to pan the kick or bass guitar away from the center?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Not often, because it's disconcerting to the listener. I mean, especially in headphones. It just sounds weird. But yeah. Yeah. I mean, the Wedding Present song we talked about, I mean, that was a kick on each side, but they're doing different kick patterns. So it's not like it makes a kick. I mixed the live version that Motorpsycho did of Demon Box. They did on like the 30th anniversary of it. And there's a DVD I mixed of that. And there are two drummers. There's the original drummer who's in the band for a really long time, and then the current drummer. And so those drum kits start with the kicks almost in the middle and then go out. So the overheads are spread from left of center to hard left, right of center to hard right, but the kick drums are cheated in. So frequency wise, it doesn't feel crazy, but it's usually a reason like that. But check out the Beatles records. Plenty of drums on one side, but you can't have a gigantic modern kick drum and pan it on one side. That's not going to work. Mm-hmm. It's going to feel weird.
Yeah. Yeah. Let's see if we got anything else. It's a recommendation for panned kick and snare.
All right. Well, okay. And there's an amazing, one of my favorite songs in the world is Fearless by Pink Floyd. It's on the Metal album. And that has kick on the left, snare on the right. But again, you've got to make sure that the job they're doing and how loud they are isn't distracting. And it's something I didn't even notice it for a while. And that's how you know it's well done. So, yeah, there are a million reasons to do it, but it's very difficult to do it where you're actually helping the song, I think.
Yeah. All right. I think that is the end of the questions, and we have reached the current stopping point of your discography with the fireworks. Mine doesn't do it, unfortunately. But we do have, we got this, a little bit of this, and some.
Ta-da!
Really nice comments coming in.
We're like over 30 hours, aren't we?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, definitely. Very nice comments, guys. Thank you very much.
Excuse me, maybe not. Maybe we're not 30, but way over 20.
I mean, we're 7 episodes in. We're at least 14.
Oh no, but they're all at least 3 or 4 hours. So
yeah.
But thanks everybody for checking these out. And maybe this is the last one, or maybe it isn't. Maybe we were trying to figure out a way to do a live one of these, which I think would be really fun. So, I don't think I'm going to come back to be doing a weekly or a bi-weekly thing, because it's so labor intensive. I just can't do it. My brain won't handle it. But yeah, thanks to everybody and not just these ones,
says,
but
while
the whole series.
Putting all these nice things up.
It's all these nice things. It's amazing.
So you got to come back weekly.
I'm not coming back weekly. Mark knows
Bi-weekly.
How exhausted I was with those.
Yeah, it was pretty insane.
It was intense. But that's the way I felt like I had to do them, and I'm really proud of them. And I'd rather have done that and then stop than do stuff that I don't think, And so the reason they should be on a gold record and send it to space is that then nobody would have to watch it.
It'd be the only copy, one of those deals.
And off the planet.
Awesome.
Well,
We'll have
yeah.
to do this again soon. Yeah, I mean, this is like a temporary hiatus for the show altogether?
Yeah, for something. I mean, look,
Yeah.
we have to do a live version of this, and we got to do some more Between Two Shores. Like, there's
Yeah.
shit we got to do again because it was good.
Yeah,
So,
definitely. Oh man. Very nice comment. That's awesome, Stravos.
awesome. Thanks.
Yeah.
I'm
Very cool.
glad to help. I
Yeah.
have to say, just really quickly, and I think I said it during the Low Roar episode, is like that's one of the most amazing things is so many people talk about Low Roar that it's what got them through very difficult parts of their lives in
Yeah.
a million different ways. And so that's, you know, that's
Yeah.
the point of doing something like this.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
And also, I like to hear myself talk, and I have such a huge ego.
You just have these playing on loop in your house.
Oh,
All
God, yeah.
6 of the current ones
Yeah,
in
baby.
different rooms, no matter where you go.
But if you're near Worcester, then, well, Chad wouldn't do it. Believe me, I asked him. I mean, we're really good friends. And he just, first of all, he's like, well, why would anybody want to talk to me? Which is fucking crazy. But yeah, he wasn't comfortable doing it. He did the panel, on
Mhm.
hearing health. But yeah, he wouldn't do it.
Yeah. Another time. If you guys see
All
Chad, let him know. All right. Awesome.
will.
And Andrew, thanks for having me on these. It's been like a
Man,
crazy honor for me.
Let's hear it for Mark. Give him a thumbs up.
Awesome.
Give him a
and
heart.
a heart. Oh my
I
gosh.
love
look at this.
him.
Thank you very much for having me on it. Yeah.
Of course. It's been
Very
awesome.
cool.
I mean, we definitely would not have done 7 episodes without you. Like, there's no fucking way.
It would have been done in 4. So it would have been
No, I wouldn't have
prepared.
been able to take it. It would have turned into a little bit like, some of the interviews where it all got very monosyllabic. It would have been that. So this
Cool.
has been really, really fun.
Yeah, definitely has. Last thing, DMK wants to know where to get a ticket for.
That post that you put up, I've got a Facebook post about it, but if you search The Hive Worcester, that's the library, and then my name, you'll come across it. It's a series of things they're doing called Get Loud or something like that, and the tickets are free. They're doing tickets just for to know what the capacity is. I'd be shocked if it sells out.
Mm-hmm.
But get your tickets early because it might sell out.
Yeah.
But the tickets are free. Just the only thing that the woman putting it together was what they hate about free tickets is that people get them and they have no intention of coming. Like, oh, I'll get some tickets to that. So if you're going to get them, come. Because it'll be fun. It'll be, you know what, though? It's going to be like, oh, yeah, I heard that fucking story. Yeah, I heard that story. No, I heard
You've seen all the episodes?
so boring. Yeah, heard that.
You're crazy.
Yeah.
Nice. All right. I think that
Mark,
does it.
You got a session
Amazing.
to go to. Thank
Cool.
you so much. Thanks, everybody. This has been awesome.
Yeah,
And we're not
thanks.
going to say, we're just saying au revoir.
Yeah. Till next time.
Ciao.
Yeah. We'll do it
Ciao,
again
Bella.
very soon. Yeah.
Awesome.
I have ideas for stuff for you to do, so keep an eye out. We'll have Andrew back on soon. Awesome.
Excellent.
All right, everybody. Thanks so much. And we'll
Bye.
see you next time. Bye.